to its core, and you see there his casket being brought to the center of the Sintas Center, to that podium. This is WCPO 9 special coverage for Deputy Henderson. I want to introduce you. I have Eric Franz, retired sergeant with the Cincinnati Police Department, retired Cincinnati Police Assistant Chief Dave Bailey with me as well. My co-anchor Craig McKee is going to join us during this broadcast. Now, I want to go to this funeral immediately and take a look at folks at what is happening there. You hear the bagpipes in the distance, and you see is this an honor guard, fellas?
Yes.
So that is an honor guard that is taking care of his casket, bringing it to the floor.
Henderson County Police Association honor guard doing the casket detail today.
You hear Steve Watt, he's the bagpiper here, and he does a lot of these.
Company, order, up!
With precision, they do that duty. We expect this service to begin very quickly here, on time, as is expected.
Order, up. Ready, post.
See his order of service here. I thought I printed it for everyone tonight. Want to let you know, as this service is underway,
You may be seated.
we will first hear from Rabbi Mendy Carlmanson. I'm sorry. He is the chaplain for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff, Chief, Governor, Mayor, esteemed public officials, brothers and sisters in law enforcement, and fellow citizens, thank you for being here today to honor and pay tribute to Hamilton County Deputy Sheriff, Deputy Larry Henderson. Your presence is a powerful expression of support for this family, Lori, Larry, Alexandria, Taylor, Riley, Adriano, a testament to the impact Deputy Henderson had on all of us. Please join me in prayer. Eternal God, our refuge and strength, we come before you with heavy hearts, mourning the loss of Deputy Larry Henderson. Your word tells us in Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Be near to us now. We thank you for Larry's life, his courage, and his service. As we grieve, we hold to your promise in Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Surround this family with your comfort. Grant peace to all who serve and protect. And may Larry rest in your eternal care. Amen. Ecclesiastes 3:1-11. In the original Hebrew, translated into English. L'kol zman ve'es l'chol chayfetz tachas hashamayim. Everything has an appointed season, and there's a time for every matter under the heaven. Eis leledes ve'eis lamos, eis letas ve'eis la'akor natua. Time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted. Eis lahareg ve'eis lirfei, eis lirpreitz ve'eis livnais. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break and a time to build. Eis libcheis ve'eis lischaik, eis sapaid ve'eis rakaid. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time of wailing and a time of dancing. Eis lahashlich avanim ve'eis kanais avanim, eis lechavik ve'eis lerchaik mikhabik. A time to cast stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Eis levakesh ve'eis la'abed, eis lishmar ve'eis lahashlich. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. Eis lekreya ve'eis lispar, eis lechasheis ve'eis ledaber. A time to rend and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Eis le'ahev ve'eis lishnei, eis le'milchama ve'eis shalom. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Ma Yisrael Eisa ba'asher hu amel. What profit has the one who works in that which he toils? Reisi esi inyan asher nasan elikim livnei ha'adam la'avneis bai. I have seen the occupation that God gave to the sons of men, which occupy themselves. Es hakol asa yafeh bi'itai, gam es ha'olam nasan belibam, mibli asher lo yimtza ha'adam, es hama'aseh asher asa Elohim mereish v'ad seif. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, the wisdom of the world he put into their hearts, save that man should not find the deed which God did from beginning to end. Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid Adonai ra'ei la'yachzar b'nois dash yarbitzeni al mei menuchas yan alim. Nafshi yeshvei yancheni b'magalei tzedek l'man shemai. Gam ki elech b'geit salmavis la'ira ra ki ata yimadi shiftecha mishantecha hema yenachomuni. Tarach lefanai shulchan neged zerari d'shanta mishem reishi kaisi revaya. Ach toiv v'chesi yirdafuni koyim echayai v'shatu v'veis Adonai l'erech yamim. A song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days.
Next will be Father Steve Angie. He is a chaplain for not only the Cincinnati Police Department, but for the District 5 portion, which is for the Sheriff's Department, which is where Deputy Henderson.
A scripture from the Gospel of St. John. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith also in me. In my Father's house, there are many dwelling places. If there were not, would I have told you that I am going to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be. Where I am going, you know the way." Thomas said to him, "Master, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way?" Jesus said to him, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." From the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts, but I will show you still a more excellent way. If I speak in human and angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything I own, and if I hand my body over so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love is not pompous. It is not inflated. It is not rude. It does not seek its own interest. It is not quick-tempered. It does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. If there are prophecies, they will be brought to nothing. If tongues, they will cease. If knowledge, it will be brought to nothing. For we know partially, and we prophesy partially. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I used to talk as a child, think as a child, reason as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. At present, we see indistinctly as in a mirror, but then face to face. At present, I know partially. Then I shall know fully, as I am fully known. So faith, hope, love remain. These three, but the greatest of these is love.
We do expect now remarks from the Hamilton County Sheriff, Charmaine McGuffey.
On behalf of Deputy Larry Henderson, the family of Deputy Henderson, and the entire Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, I want to thank everyone for the outpouring of support from throughout the state of Ohio and our great nation. Here, we are united in grief as we reflect the life and service of Deputy Larry Henderson. Today, we are reminded that we, as we are called to service, we raise our hand, we swear the oath to walk the path of justice. And in our mirrored reflection, our family, our moms, our dads, our wives, our husbands, our children, they have their hands raised too, to acknowledge the sacrifice and support for what we have been called to do. And as we travel the road of justice, it climbs. It climbs to the most narrowed and steepest of trails. At times, our very lives hang in the balance. Yet each of us press on with courage to endure the most challenging of circumstances. Some making the ultimate sacrifice. It is then, in the darkest of times, that we must grab on to each other so as to not lose our way. And when the road clears and the path is wide, the weather calm, it is then that we rest. It is then that we mourn. It is then that we celebrate the times that we have joined hands, the times we have embraced, and the times that we have raised our glasses in salute of our love and friendship. It is now in the brotherhood and the sisterhood of our families that Deputy Larry Henderson is with us, and we are with him. Each of us knowing in our hearts that we will never walk alone.
Exactly 1 week ago today, on Friday, May 2nd, 2025, a 2016 Ford Focus embarked on a rage-fueled voyage of vengeance. The driver, a bitter and angry man whose name I will never speak, buckled himself into the driver's seat and piloted that vehicle east on Martin Luther King Drive. This sedan of destruction was on a collision course with an emblem of law and order. This vehicle, like a bullet that had already left the barrel, was loose in our community on a mission of mayhem. The only target was a police officer, any police officer. It did not matter to the hate-filled driver who. It only mattered that it be a law enforcement officer, a crime fighter, a peacemaker, a symbol of the very structure of our society. Cincinnati, Norwood, Delhi, Springfield Township, or even the Highway Patrol. The shape and inscription of the badge did not matter. The color of his shirt did not matter, nor the style of his hat. The only thing that mattered to this murderer was that those that wear the badge feel the pain. On that particular day, Deputy Larry Ray Henderson did not purposefully choose to be at the end of that collision course, a mere 4 miles from where we sit now. Yet, in a way, through the choices that he had made over the past 57 years, he did choose to be standing there near that busy crosswalk, proudly wearing that badge that had put him in harm's way for 34 years. That black Ford Focus was hurtling down the street, headed for someone in uniform. Someone wearing a badge, and Larry was there. He was there faithfully doing his job, fulfilling the role of public servant, protecting his community and his brothers and sisters. Just like he had done since he was a teenager, taking a position in the line of fire so that others did not have to, facing what we all fear so that others could be safe and free. There is no doubt that on May 2nd, 2025, Larry took the place of another officer. He may have taken that place for me, or you, or anyone in this room. His sacrifice reminds me of another well-known story of sacrifice. A man I know well made a similar choice to take my place a long time ago and much farther away. This great man was quoted saying these words, "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend." As I reflected on Larry's final day of service, I realized that that is exactly what he did for all of us in law enforcement. As I mused over his life of sacrifice, I saw one parallel after another. Larry has more in common with this great man than some of you may think. It is my deepest hope that they're hanging out right now as we speak. Of course, the man I'm speaking of is not just a man. You can look that story up yourself or ask me later, and I'd be happy to tell you about it. Even though his final act of sacrifice took place 6,000 miles from here, almost 2,000 years ago, I'm happy to say I know him well, and I'd be happy to tell you his name. If you have the time, I could even introduce you. But today is about Larry. In fact, Larry Henderson is the only name you will hear from me this morning. Larry dedicated his life to service and making sacrifices. I will do my best to paint a picture of that life, or at least a collage of the stories that you have told me and my own experiences. When I was asked to speak, I was humbled beyond words. Like many others on patrol, Larry trained me in the academy. I worked alongside him, and I considered him a good friend. There are many here today who knew Larry better than me. Shot more sim rounds, kicked in more doors, diffused more bombs, went on more cruises, and drank more beers with Larry than I ever could have. I reached out to a few for some stories and anecdotes, and within a few hours, I had enough to do a mini-series. There's not enough time to tell you even half the stories about Larry, but we will hit the high points, and I encourage you to talk to one another. Tell your own stories, share your memories, and listen to the memories of others. I have no doubt that Larry's larger-than-life persona can live on indefinitely through the memories he made with us. Larry grew up in Marymount. In high school, he ran track, wrestled, and played football. As with anything he did in life, I'm sure he put everything he had into it. No doubt, making number 34 the fastest running back on the team was his ultimate mission. After graduating high school in 1985, he followed the military tradition of his father and grandfather by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps. Most of the men in his family were Marines, or maybe I should say most of the Marines in his family were men. Larry's sister expressed her disappointment that her father would not permit her to enlist in the Marines. She had to marry one just to fit in. In the Marines, the values of the Marine Corps were further instilled in Larry. Courage, honor, courage, and commitment. These values and the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful, perfectly sums up his approach to life and work. In 1991, after his time in the Marines, Larry joined the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office as a corrections officer. He never accepted good enough or became stagnant in his career. He constantly sought out ways to provide additional service to his department and community. One of the first ways he did that was by volunteering for the Sheriff's Honor Guard. Throughout his entire career, Larry was always clean-shaven, his uniform crisply pressed, his shoes and leather goods polished and glossy black. The myriad of pins and medals he wore were perfectly aligned, brightly shining, and buffed to an absolute luster. Larry always looked sharp in uniform, which is why I was so shocked in December 2024 when he inquired of me about a no-shave status for his career as a special deputy. Although shocked, I replied with my customary response, "If you type and sign it, I'll send it." The letter never came through, and to this day, I don't know if he was serious or not, but I never saw him out of uniform at work or out of compliance with our grooming standards. Even as the inevitable march of time took its unavoidable toll, he kept his uniform in top order. Larry's activities did shift a bit over the years, from track and football to basic training, academy instructor, SWAT team, and finally onto a workload that, well, let's just say was slightly more relaxed. As he spent more time doing things like hospital security and school traffic control, Larry's fitness goals slowly transitioned also. Like most of us, he went from maintaining the peak of physical fitness to staying fit, and finally, like so many in our profession, maybe his goal was just fitness uniform. but Larry always did fit in his uniform, and he wore it well. It's okay to laugh. Larry could certainly take a joke. If he could right now, he'd be mocking my silly hooker boots and miming me on a motorcycle. That is something Larry could always do, make us smile. When he came to patrol in 1997, he began to brighten briefing rooms all across the county. Larry had a very special skill set. He could make us laugh, lighten the mood, and put us in check if we ever began to take ourselves or our jobs too seriously. His good-natured, sarcastic ribbing would have been incredibly offensive and disrespectful coming from anyone else. But when delivered with his playful smirk and smiling eyes, it usually landed soft, delivered the point, and kept all of our egos in check. Larry did not see rank when it came to his hazing. Everyone was fair game, from the rookie that made the mistake of showing up for a week with frosted tips, to his poor stammering sergeant while he tried to explain the mythical 48-hour rule. You know what I'm saying. Whenever I get carried away with the administrative minutia, he was always ready with a snarky quip to realign my focus on the things that really mattered. Even the renowned commander of the Southwest Ohio Regional Sheriff's Office Bicycle Patrol Unit and assistant to the field training coordinator was not beyond a well-timed, reproachful remark to rein in any excess importance. Larry had very specific things to tease us all about. One time, the majority of the squad was involved in a use of force that ended with them holding the subject down in a very confined space. After several minutes squatting in the corner, one deputy began loudly complaining that he had been stricken with leg-paralyzing cramps. The following morning, in true Larry fashion, he arrived early for briefing and donated a banana and a new nickname for his fellow officer. Always considerate, Larry felt the potassium would help his squad mate with his cramps. And thanks to Larry, he will be known forevermore as Banana Boy. One of his favorite pastimes was to physically attack other members of the department. Casually approaching a complacent coworker when they would least expect it, he would stiffen the middle and index fingers of his right hand and loudly shout, "Snake bite!" while he delivered a forceful jab to any unprotected body part. He would then watch and laugh with sadistic glee as his victim flinched in pain. He would laugh. Then, while casting that well-known side eye, he'd slowly hum, in the most judgmental fashion imaginable. That was his style. It was very unique. Some might even say different. There is an FBI commander who ordered the drafting of a new policy after he discovered just how different Larry was. Having just been given an assignment in Huntsville, Alabama, this FBI commander was settling into his new role as the commandant of the Hazardous Devices School at Redstone Arsenal. He was no doubt proud to oversee the certification of his first class of freshly minted bomb technicians from all over the United States. Imagine how appalled he was at discovering the tradition that had sprung up within his highly esteemed educational institute. As legend has it, 2 Hamilton County Sheriff's deputies proudly stood in formation, nervously awaiting the placement of the HDU pins on their chests. Much to the commander's surprise, these new graduates were tacked with the HDU pin, a practice customary in the United States military, in which seasoned members of a branch or unit apply the newly earned rank or insignia without the backs on the pin. The sheriff's HDU pins were placed against the chests of the newly initiated members of the unit. The pins were then pounded home with such force that it pierced the skin and scarred the flesh, granting permanent membership to the eager participants. Overwhelmed with pride, the 2 new technicians shouted, "Semper Fi!" as a small crimson stain began to spread. The starched federal dignitary expressed great intrigue into this practice. The incumbent training staff tried to explain, "You see, sir, those are 2 deputies from Hamilton County. They're a little different." "Well, different or not," declared the commander, "that tradition ends here." No doubt, like any good bureaucrat, drafting the policy in his head while he spoke. Larry was one of a number of Marines that so honorably served their country, then joined the Sheriff's Hazardous Device Unit, or Bomb Squad, as it is often called. Larry loved being a bomb tech. Certified in 2001, he was the longest serving active member when he retired with 23 years on the unit. Working with explosives is dangerous, but Larry was never one to avoid danger. Larry received a divisional commendation in 2011 when he was one of the first officers on the scene of a homicide. He entered the residence to check on the victim and maintained a position inside, attempting to negotiate with the armed suspect. Due to his heroic actions, Larry earned the Medal of Valor that day. Although the delivery was delayed, the medal will rest with him forever. Not only did Larry accept dangerous jobs, he volunteered for the riskiest assignments. He served on and even led the dive team for a time, and was also a member of the HCPA SWAT team. Yet somehow, even while doing the most dangerous tasks, he always had time for a laugh or a prank. He could make fun of anything, no matter how serious or how dark, but he always got the job done, and he was always respectful. After I became a corporal in 2011, Larry was on one of the first squads I supervised. He did not have a sergeant for several months, and I was half the age of most of the squad. They all had many more years of experience than I did, but Larry always made me feel good about trying to be a supervisor. Even though he had trained me in the academy and had more than twice as many years on the road as I did, and no doubt knew more about policing than I ever will, he always treated me respectfully, especially in front of the other officers. Larry had a big personality, and he carried a lot of weight in the briefing room. Through his words and actions, he graciously shared the respect he had earned with me. I will never forget that about Larry. Even in the past few years, as the most senior officer on the squad, he never complained or made excuses. "It's all good, man," was his constant catchphrase. He was the epitome of keeping it light, keeping it positive, and keeping it simple. When given a task, no matter how unpleasant, his only reply was one or two of these simple lines. "Yes, sir, no problem. I'll take care of it, sir." "Sure," or "Whatever you need, sir." I can still hear him saying that in my mind, and it is truly humbling. Deputy Henderson had a heart to help others. He could calm and de-escalate situations so subtly that many did not even remember how upset they were. As a defensive tactics instructor in the Patrol Academy, Larry spent many hours in the padded suit beating up other patrol officers and cadets. Accompanying him in these lessons of subordination was our irritable, now retired rangemaster, known well for his temperamental outbursts and physical corrective measures. During one heated session of pugilistic training, this ill-tempered trainer took a well-placed kneecap to the groin from a hapless cadet. As the former powerlifter raised him off the ground in a fit of rage, he began escorting him to the edge of the room. Larry, the ever-helpful problem solver, saw the trajectory of this ball of fury and calmly offered, "Hey, can I at least open the window before you throw him out?" Larry spent a great deal of time working with our training section. He also taught DARE classes and was actually considering the idea of going back to work full-time as a school resource officer. Yes, Larry was great with kids of all ages. I think mostly because he was kind of a big kid himself. After all of his children had grown up, he and his wonderful wife began the process of fostering children. In October of 2024, he joyfully declared that he had brought home his first foster child, a girl. For nearly 2 months, Larry and his wife poured their time, energy, and hearts into this little girl, until with very little warning, one day she was taken back. They immediately put their names back on the list to do it again. Selflessly, they volunteered for the toughest kids to place. Children with chemical dependence or premature births were no deterrent. In December, they took custody of a beautiful baby girl just 4 days old. At work, he showed us pictures, as proud as if she were his very own. This baby was taken back after 2 months. Almost 8 weeks to watch the changes happen, watch a baby grow, rock them to sleep, treat them like your very own, and then to have it all taken away. It takes very special people to do that over and over. Larry and his lovely bride are those very special people, caring for and prioritizing society's most helpless and innocent citizens. Again, this is the life of service and sacrifice I have been trying to tell you about today. Larry truly cared about his fellow man. He had a special knack for knowing when you were hurting or down, or even just plain tired. In the early morning hours, Larry was the man relieving the tired night shift officers. At the close of a 12 or 16-hour day, Larry could be counted on to arrive 15 to 20 minutes early as the officers would begin sharing about the previous shift, maybe a domestic they had been on called to twice, or a suspect they had been looking for. Recognizing their fatigue, he would often cut them off and say these 5 words: "Go home, I got it." Sometimes he would flip it. Sometimes it was, "I got it, go home." But he always relieved well and very early. Larry and I worked many hours at Mercy Anderson Hospital. He often relieved me several minutes early. If I were telling him about a parking concern or an unruly patient I had been dealing with, he would simply take the radio and the key card from my hand as he said, "Go home, I got it." If I've heard him say that once, I've heard it 100 times. What that said to me was that all the problems I thought still needed fixed were under control. All the things I'd left unfinished, he would deal with. He would address that unruly patient. He'd look for those suspects. If he got called there, he would even go back to that domestic a 3rd time. When Larry said, "Go home, I got it," we all knew that everything was going to be just fine. Through no fault of his own, Larry left a lot of things unfinished. There's a lawn that needs cut. There's a family that needs raised. There are people that need supported and cheered. Tomorrow, there will be an early morning briefing that needs a wisecrack and a laugh to get the day started. Somebody may even need a snake bite every now and then. That is on you now. It's finally our turn to relieve Larry. His shift on earth was far too short, but it is time for him to secure. It's our job now. I hope you will join me in your hearts as we look at our brothers and sisters. Look to society's helpless and hurting. Look for the ones that Larry always looked after. We know the mission. We know the job: protect and serve. Will you finish the shift? Will you join me as I look to Larry and say, "Go home, I got it"?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shine praise than when we first begun.
You'll now hear some words of comfort from Rabbi Mendy, and then a couple prayers from Father Angie.
As we come to the close of the service, I'd like to offer a few reflections shared amongst what feels like a couple of thousand of Larry's closest friends. As the department's chaplain, I won't share personal stories or private conversations. Instead, I want to reflect on the way Larry lived and the legacy he leaves behind. Larry was a man devoted to others. That devotion was unmistakable across nearly 40 years of service to our country and to Hamilton County, first as a Marine and then as a sheriff's deputy. He didn't judge others by race, religion, nationality, or orientation. He looked at character. He believed in helping anyone who was willing to accept it, and he touched countless lives, many of whom he may have encountered only once, but left with a lasting impact. In what many would consider a well-earned retirement, Larry and his beloved wife, Lori, chose not to rest, but to give. They opened their home and hearts to foster children, once again showing that their lives were grounded in compassion, not convenience. Larry didn't care where someone came from. What mattered to him was where they would go with love, support, and someone who believed in them. That's who Larry was. Someone who quietly, consistently chose to do good, simply because it was the right thing to do. Larry's life was stolen from us in an act of evil. How do we respond to such darkness? How do we carry on when something so senseless shatters us? We respond with light. A little light dispels much darkness. We don't have to fight darkness. We just need to introduce light. In a pitch black room, even a flicker of light can change everything. It doesn't take much. That is our task now, to honor Larry by living as he did, shining light into the lives of others through acts of goodness and kindness. So I ask you all today, take a page from Larry's life. Let's honor him by making a resolution, not like that New Year's resolution, but a commitment that you will actually live out. Doesn't have to be big. If you're usually grumpy in the morning, commit to greeting others with a smile and a kind word. Donate to a charity that helps others. Lend a hand to someone in need, but do it in Larry's honor. And who knows, maybe you'll find yourself doing it again and again. Larry never wanted the spotlight. That wasn't his style. So I'm going to shift directions a little bit and speak directly to his brothers and sisters of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. Even after 30 years of service, I still wake up every morning feeling blessed to serve alongside each and every one of you. I often say the best part of this job is getting to work with some of the finest people I know. The hardest part, losing one of them. I'm so proud of all of you. You always have each other's backs. Yes, we bicker sometimes like siblings, but when it matters most, we stand together. This past week has shown that in powerful ways. Keep looking out for one another. We will get through this together, and we'll always carry our memories of Larry. No one can take that from us. To the Cincinnati Police and our fellow law enforcement agencies across Hamilton County, thank you. Thank you for pinning on that badge every day. Thank you for your courage, your sacrifice, and your dedication. You are seen and you are appreciated. To the citizens of Hamilton County, thank you for your support. Your presence here today means everything. But please, don't wait for a tragedy to show that support. Continue to stand behind the men and women who serve you. I've seen it. The waitress who brings cookies to the table paid for by a stranger. The heartfelt thank yous while on patrol, the letters and cards dropped off at the stations. We notice, we remember, we need that, especially when others are loud with hate. I remember my first day at the academy. They showed us photos of fatal accidents and graphic crime scenes, videos of officers being killed in the line of duty. They told us about high divorce rates, increased health risks, higher suicide rates, and the emotional toll of this profession. One person left that day, never to come back. This job is not for everyone. It takes a very special person to say yes. Despite all of that, I still want to help others. I want to ensure the citizens can sleep at night without worrying about the evil that lurks out there. Those are the people I ask you to support loudly and often. To Larry's family, there are no words. You had Larry up close every day. You knew his laugh, his quirks, his strength, and his love. Thank you for sharing him with all of us. Thank you for the sacrifice you made every time he walked out the door. You never knew if that would be the day you'd get the call. Sadly, that day came last Friday. But know this, you are and always will be part of our family at the Sheriff's Office. We are here for you, we uplift you in prayer, we surround you with love, and we will forever be grateful. To those who have passed before Larry, and who will no doubt greet him in heaven, be ready. Larry brings his sense of humor, his heart, and surely a few tricks up his sleeve. Heaven has gained an angel, a faithful servant, and a fierce protector. And finally, Larry, we had some good times. I'll always be grateful for those memories. If I ever wronged you in word or deed, or in failing to say or do something, I ask for your forgiveness. You are an amazing human being, a great friend, and a strong protector. You will be deeply missed. I know you're watching over us now. Rest easy, brother. We have it from here. Godspeed.
And now, Father Angie.
Trusting in God, we have prayed together for Larry, and now we come to the last farewell. There is sadness in parting here, but we take comfort in the hope that one day we shall see Larry again and enjoy his friendship. Although we may disperse in sorrow, it is the peace of God that will gather us together again. Therefore, let us console one another in the faith of Jesus Christ. Let us pray. Lord God, into your hands we commend our brother Larry in the sure and confident hope that with all who have died in Christ, he will be raised to life again with Christ on the last day. We thank you for all of the blessings you have given to Larry in this life. They are signs to us of your goodness and of the fellowship that we have with you in Jesus Christ. Lord, hear our prayer. Welcome our brother Larry to paradise, and help us to comfort each other with the assurance of our faith until we all meet in Christ to be one with you and with our brother Larry forever. Amen. Bow your heads and pray for God's blessing. Merciful Lord, you know the anguish of the sorrowful. You are attentive to the prayers of the humble. Hear your people who cry out to you in their need, and strengthen their hope in your lasting goodness. We ask your blessing upon each of us this day. Amen. We now take our brother Larry to his place of rest.
This time we'll expect that the color guard will return to the casket and begin the recessional. with his body that will then take him to what will be a processional onto Spring Grove, where he will be laid to rest.
So you're going to see his family.
So a lot of the deputies there are his family, besides his naturally born family, and they're all going to file out with him. And Dave and I have been to several of these where you knew them as your brother.
That voice you just heard is retired Sergeant Eric Franz. He was with the Cincinnati Police Department. I want to remind you, you see them touching the flag, touching the casket, saying their goodbyes to Deputy Henderson. I want to remind you, I also have with me a retired Assistant Chief Dave Bailey.
As you can imagine, Tanya, the emotions in that room, and I've been there, somber, a tragic day for law enforcement family and the community as well. I mean, but somber, uncertainty, maybe in some cases anger, why, all those are going through the minds of the officers there. Like I said, I've been there, and you'll see a very formal procession here. This is all practiced and scripted out. You heard from...
They just said all rise.
Okay.
And we're going to listen to this processional, the recessional happen.
Vigil. Up and jump. Port. Arm. Ready. Move. Vigil. Up, out. Hey. 3, 7. Arm. Arm. Right.
Ears. Hold. Center. Face. Precinct. Off. On. Ready. Face.
Company, up 10, hoot!
Ready. Post. Right step. March. Right flank. March.
Vigil. Up, out. Face.
Company!
Forward. March.
So you just heard the bagpipes. You're hearing a few commands by to the color guard, or the honor guard, I should say. Is that correct, boys, gentlemen? Okay, it's the honor guard, and they are now bringing Deputy Henderson to the hearse that will then begin this processional onto Spring Grove. We heard Amazing Grace being sung, and then we just heard it on the bagpipes. And gentlemen, you both said that is often a cue for a lot of emotions.
I haven't been able to listen to bagpipes since Dan Pope and Ron Jr. got killed, and they bring back so much emotion. I'm pretty sure, Dave, you're the same.
That is the part of the service that really does move. I mean, and it's what we were talking before. I mean, really tragic situation. A lot of moving pieces here. We're going to see a lot of moving parts. You can plan for these. It's extensive planning. But in the end, you got a family you have to take care of. So you got to be mindful of that. So things may change here.
So you have planned, unfortunately, at least one of these, maybe two?
Two.
Two of these. And so the process now is what? What happens?
Planning has been ongoing for a week, and as you can imagine, we got traffic posts, we've got all these other departments that we have to put in the equation here. We have to move. Everything pretty much has to be on time. So now whoever's coordinating this is making sure we're moving on time. However, if we remember back to the funeral of Sonny Kim,
which is the one you planned.
Right, we had to wait when we were trying to get everybody ready to go. We had to wait down in the Cintas Center because not everybody was ready to move on time, and things got delayed. I suspect that could happen here. So they're working now to get everybody moving and get the procession up and running. It'll be a very impressive procession. It'll be cars from many different departments locally, probably even from out of state.
Yeah, we've seen so many departments in the processional that went this morning to bring his body in that casket and the family to the Cintas Center. We should mention he had there, of course, his wife Lori. He had 5 children, 2 of them married. They are Larry the third, Alexandria, Taylor, Riley, and Adriana. And then he has 4 grandchildren as well. On top of the fact that, as we have heard them talk about so eloquently today, he and his wife were starting to foster children as well. What did you hear in that service that struck you?
The District 5 commander, the lieutenant, did an amazing job. Downing did an amazing job of sharing what kind of person Larry was. You know, a Marine. There we see they're lining up for the funeral. But Lieutenant did an amazing job. Larry was a real person. You know, if you went to the Justice Center in the 90s, you knew Larry. He was an intake. If you worked out in the field, you'd run into him. He did Riverbend once in a while. I'd saw him up at the hospital the few times I was up there. He was everywhere, and he was a friendly guy. You know, he was a real human being, and that's what Lieutenant Downing did a great job of telling everybody.
Well, we sure did get a glimpse into that he was a kidder. You know, he liked to play practical jokes, that he liked to have fun, and that he was always getting it, taking it, but he gave it too.
I think so. I think Lieutenant Downing did a great job of characterizing Larry, which, by the way, this week I've had the opportunity to talk to some people inside the sheriff's office. Same story. And what a great guy, what a prankster, what a sense of humor. I just got that here. I think Lieutenant Downing also did a great job of giving us a view of the law enforcement culture. Didn't you get that?
Yes.
What goes on, the kidding, the joking, and that's what makes that brotherhood and sisterhood, as the sheriff talked about in her opening remarks.
It's a fraternity. I mean,
right.
Fraternity and sorority now, but fraternity for
right.
sure. And I mean that in the most, real sense of the word, that you talked about being the brotherhood, the sisterhood. That is what it is. You guys are bound together by that thin blue line forever and ever.
You've got to remember that people depended on Larry to save their lives. Not only the citizens out there, but his fellow officers. When they called for help, Larry was one of the first guys there.
I loved what they were talking about when they said, go ahead, I got this, you go ahead. He could notice that somebody was, reaching the end of their rope for the day, maybe wasn't having the best day ever. I've been there about a million times, and that he just would walk up and go ahead, go home, I got this.
When the lieutenant was telling those stories, it kind of paralleled what we've experienced. I've got it. Go on. I've got it. You take care of it. You go. Kind of common. And one of the things, you know, it's a culture that we don't pat each other on the back so much, but a real good sign about somebody is when somebody says, he was a good man. And this week, that's all I got. He was a good man. Absolutely.
Over and over and over. Every once in a while, you might hear, you never speak ill of the dead, understood, but some like, yeah, he's a good enough guy, good enough. Not Deputy Henderson. No. I have never heard one person even intonate that there was one thing that you could not say nice about this man.
You know, I was talking to Chief Deputy Chris Ketterman last night, and Chris is like, you know what? There are some people that were just born to be in this role. And that was Larry. He was born to be a Marine. He took being a Marine, and he transferred that into being a deputy. And it wasn't enough. He always had to do more. We saw that. We heard the lieutenant talk about dive team, SWAT. He taught DARE. Same thing. He was always looking for more. He just wasn't the guy that ran the beat. He was the guy that, like I said, he's a good man. I can count on him. And that's what I got throughout this week.
I want to go to reporter Andrew Rowan. He is just outside the Cintas Center and can maybe help us understand. This is a process, folks. It's going to take a long time to get everyone in their vehicles ready, in a line. It is such a big ordeal to do this. But I want to go out to Andrew, who can maybe shed some light on the folks who've been in and out of the Cintas Center today and what we're experiencing now. Andrew, can you help us out a little bit?
Hey, Tanya. Yes, so the service has now ended. People are coming out of the Cintas Center, and I'm going to step out of the way so we can sort of set the scene for you. This is the east side of the building, of the parking lot, where hundreds of law enforcement vehicles are parked. They're lined up. They are going to be in this procession to the funeral. We've seen, starting at 8 this morning, 7:30 this morning, departments from all across our region, our state, even parts of the country. I started to make a list. I got to 100, and then I stopped. 100 different departments, agencies, sheriff's offices, as far away from New York, Dallas, Chicago. We've seen men and women in uniform. So they're all coming out now. They're going to get into their cruisers and essentially wait for everybody to be set. Hamilton County is first going to go behind the motorcycles and the family. Then it is going to be all of those other vehicles across the parking lot. I believe we have some drone video that we shot a little bit earlier, just to give you a sense of the scale of what we're looking at. Just hundreds of vehicles. One of the things we spoke yesterday with the Franklin County FOP president, he was saying what strikes him of why they sent 25 to 50 vehicles down here today, what struck him and their officers as striking here is that it could have been any one of them. That was his words. Directing traffic at a graduation. He says it shows even the routineness of what is supposed to be routine on the job. They are out there facing danger every day. And so it took all of them pretty emotionally hard. And so they said anything we can do to be there for the family, to show that you are not alone, to show solidarity. That is why so many different agencies are here. I want to give you another sense back out live. There are two different sort of steepnesses, if you will. The top part is the parking lot. The bottom part is the picture we're showing you now. That is the motorcycles getting ready for the procession. Once they start up, the vehicles that were all in those parking lots are going to go around the corner, come down the hill, and join that line. They're going to make a right out of the Xavier campus. So that, Tanya, is sort of a sense of what we are seeing here in terms of just hundreds of law enforcement officers getting ready to be part of this procession.
Andrew, stay with us for a second. I want to let everyone know that we've brought in my co-anchor, Craig McKee. Thank you for coming in.
It's an honor.
You watched all of that service, but I want to stay with Andrew if I can. Andrew, you watched the hundreds of people come into that service and come out. Anything strike you as they were heading in and as they are coming out now?
In particular, the somberness and the tone that everybody was greeting with each other. And then you'd have these moments of lightheartedness. People who hadn't seen each other in years were hugging, high-fiving. There was a really lighthearted moment here where they had to clear this parking lot, and someone came out after the visitation and said, "Hey, have you seen my cruiser?" And they were like, good luck finding it in this parking lot. So it's a mix of both an understanding of, I think, sort of what you heard during the service there, that there's a camaraderie amongst the law enforcement here, but there's also a somberness that it could have been any one of them directing traffic that day.
Thank you, Andrew. A gentleman who was talking about, like, there was some lightheartedness out in the parking lot. There is a gallows humor in law enforcement, is there not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is, and people are going to handle this different ways. But there are going to be some that will try to lighten us up, and we need that, right? We need to lighten us up. It's going to be a very, very demanding day for everybody involved.
Well, and Deputy Henderson did that throughout his career.
Right.
In those tough moments, he made sure to make things light, because not only in your business, it can be a heavy day, a heavy week, a heavy month,
right,
depending on what you're dealing with. In those situations, whether you're going back to that house or that situation for the third time or the first time, those are heavy situations that the men and women in law enforcement deal with on a regular basis. So sometimes you have to lift that up a little bit, take some of that weight off, and you do that through levity.
Right. It happens all the time. I remember many times a serious briefing, and then somebody will always come in and throw a bomb, and they're like, this has nothing to do with this. But
right.
It took our minds off of something that, it kept us focused. And I remember the lieutenant saying that Larry kept him grounded when he was a young supervisor. And that's important. I was a young supervisor. I remember, really, Lieutenant? And sometimes you really need those people around you saying, think about what you're doing. And that's where you need those Larrys to come and say, what are you doing, dude? Okay. So, yeah, I pick up on a lot of things that Lieutenant Dowling talked about. I experienced myself.
Well, you talk about lifting up, though, and you talk about that leadership and the way Larry was and the way he touched the community. That was so important for him to, although there were younger members in law enforcement coming up through the ranks, he knew how important it was to encourage that development. And so while he could have pulled rank and tenure,
right,
and said, no, you're not going to do this because I've been doing this longer than you, or I have more experience. He didn't do that. He encouraged that growth and made some of the leaders that the department has today.
Right. And we need that. And the agency needs that. And that's how we move forward.
One of the things that we heard, you're talking about the agency moving forward. There is a lot of anger. You can feel it. You can understand it. And you heard it in many of the speakers today talking about trying to harness that and turn it into something light, to be positive because of what has occurred last Friday, because of the death of Deputy Henderson, and in the manner in which it occurred. There is a lot of anger, of course, among law enforcement agents. So you heard that over and over today. Be light. Try to give light where you can. Is it something, how do you help these officers deal with the stress of this and the anger and all of those emotions?
And policing has changed. When I first came on, it was suck it up, kid, and keep moving. And now we talk about it. And there's anger. Dave and I buried 5 and 6 guys in our career that we both knew, and the anger was there, and we took it home, and it, in cases, it cost us marriages, it cost us friends. Now we talk about it, and that's the amazing change in policing that you're seeing. The police clergy, they've been around all along, but now they get in there and they talk to the officers. The counseling's available. Cincinnati has full-time counselors and a full-time staff just to work on officer safety and officer.
The fear always was, and similar to the military, obviously you're an Army veteran as well, and he was a Marine veteran. There is that sense of, if I speak up, hey, I'm having a bad day, or I'm having a bad week, or a bad month, or bad personal life, or whatever that is, if you bring that to the table, now suddenly you won't get that promotion. Suddenly you'll be at desk duty instead of out on patrol doing what you love. And that was a huge concern that they're now getting over.
Right, that you're weak. We can't have somebody that's weak commanding. We can't have somebody that's weak out on patrol. And we're all humans. And that's what policing has changed, and it's a good change.
Have you seen that as well?
This has been a topic of discussion for many years. What is stress doing to our departments on a national level? And now, like Eric said, we're starting to recognize it. We're starting to deal with it through grief counseling. As a matter of fact, I walked out last night. I saw Officer Ertl with a grief counseling dog, just one of our dogs, Stella, with the Cincinnati Police Department. Great idea. The clergy team, I headed it up when I was in Cincinnati. We trained together. But much more than that, when these incidents happen, we really embed them in the districts to get down with our folks and what do you need? How can we help? We're here. And I remember I heard the sheriff talking. They had a session the other night where I think she said there was over 100 officers that attended.
That's amazing.
So people are attending that where, like Craig said, in years past, that may not have happened, but now they're coming forward and saying, you know what, I need to talk about this. And that's a good thing.
I interviewed Father Angie, who you all saw during that service. both at the beginning and then at the very end. And I asked him, what is involved in, how are you helping at this time? And he talked about how we're available. We're available 24/7 to these men and women. And they're even within the Cincinnati Police Department, I'm aware of, because Chief Teresa Thigi has enacted this, is that even their families have access to mental health services if needed, correct?
We've got a person, her name's Tiffany Galvez, and her sole job is to make sure not only the officers are safe, but our families are safe as well. And she brings it all together. Chris Perry, before he left, that was his job as well. A lot of good officers and civilians that work together. You know, a good police officer needs to be mentally balanced. Their mental health needs to be in balance, and that's what we're doing.
You mentioned like the families there, the toll that it can take on the wife, of the children. And I hope that neither of you had a lot of experience with that, but it's true, it happens. My brother is a police officer in California, and his wife often talks to me about every day he walks out the door, I am terrified. It happens.
You know, it's kind of selfish for the officers that we walk out sometimes, yeah, it's another day at the office, right? It's like coming here, we got to get this done today, we're going to go in and do what we need to do. But that family probably don't think that way. What are you walking into? What's going to happen to them today? And I think the sheriff brought that up. You swear the oath, but the family does too. They're the ones that have to live with this back home. The nights you're gone, the nights you don't come home, and the long hours and all that. And she talked about that, and she talked about that brotherhood and sisterhood. I talked to several people here. I talked to Deputy Chief Chris Ketterman last night. The same thing, but there's always this. The next day, we got to prepare the department to move forward. And that was always today we grieve. Today's Larry's day. Tomorrow, we got to get the department moving in the direction we need to go.
Yeah,
we continue to press on.
You can't linger too long.
And I think you understand that the military mindset, tomorrow, the Army moves.
And sometimes the next hour.
Yeah, it could be.
Sometimes it's decompartmentalized, you shove that back, and that's part of the mental health side of things now. I think let's deal with this, but when it's time, come and talk to us. Let's unpack that. Let's talk through it. Let's work through it. But that ability in law enforcement and the military as well, here's the chaos, here's the situation, but that mission still has to continue. Those officers still have to put that uniform back on.
Right.
They still have to go out that door. And even more so after an event like this, those family members, I think, are now, are you going to go out there? Are you, unfortunately, going to be the next Deputy Henderson? I don't want that to happen. Those concerns start weighing on them.
I think the Chief Deputy expressed to me last night, you know, in the manner in which this happened, it's an ambush. How do I guard against that? This is a whole different aspect of how do I guard? How do I tell my officers to be mindful of this? You know, it's very tragic, very tragic.
You can't, right?
You can't.
You can't.
And now we got two departments that are grieving. We got families that are grieving, and lots of losers here.
Yeah.
But as Craig said, tomorrow we get up, we have to move forward.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go out to Connor Steffen. He is a reporter, of course, and he's standing by at Spring Grove Cemetery, which is, of course, where Deputy Henderson will be laid to rest a little while later from now. And we are going to stay with this broadcast, by the way, until we hear his last call there at Spring Grove. So, Connor, obviously not a lot of activity out there now, but walk us through what's going on.
Hey, Tanya. Hey, guys. It's, as you could imagine, a somber feeling out here in front of Spring Grove Cemetery, as it is for much of the city, the county, and the state. You're going to have law enforcement officers from all across the country make their way here. Specifically, they're going to make their way through this entrance right here. I'm going to step out of the frame to give you guys a better look. This makeshift monument resurrected right here. Two fire truck ladder trucks coming together, uniting with the American flag flying above, as well as the thin blue line flag there for law enforcement officers. There was someone I spoke with just moments ago, told me that he knew Deputy Henderson, worked with him for 10 years, and this shouldn't come as a surprise because we've heard it time and again this morning, but the only thing he could say to me is he's one of those guys that no one had anything bad to say about. That's something I've learned from talking with countless people over the past week about who Henderson was. And of course, this here is the place where he will be laid to rest this afternoon. There's going to be a graveside service, burial here. I can tell you we have a few details about what to expect from there. later this afternoon. As the ceremony begins, we'll have a riderless horse, a 21-gun salute, the playing of taps. And of course, we spoke with Ken Kober. He is the Cincinnati FOP president a little bit earlier this week, and he explained how emotional of a time that this is for officers. We've seen quite a few here this morning, and it's hard to describe the look on their faces. The best word is somber. He said this to us, and I quote, earlier this week: "It was a huge undertaking. It's something we certainly didn't take lightly, nor did the Sheriff's Department, because you're trying to grieve yourselves." Now, what he's talking about there is you have members of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office as well as CPD, people who knew Henderson, worked alongside him, people that are both mourning his loss, but also here planning his funeral, the processions, the public visitations, all this week. It is something that we don't take lightly, showing you, bringing you the emotions. And again, things are just here getting underway this morning into this afternoon. The procession is going to begin shortly, and here, his final resting place. Tanya.
All right, Connor Steffen standing outside Spring Grove Cemetery. Thanks so much. And we should mention, for those of you who did just join us at the top of the hour at noon, we will be staying with this for quite some time. This is the funeral. We have just finished the funeral service for Deputy Larry Henderson, but then there will be a processional which will go from the Cintas Center. It should begin in the next 15 to 20 minutes. It will then come down to Spring Grove Cemetery, the most beautiful cemetery in our area, on what is perhaps the most beautiful day.
You know, when we talk about that impact, it's interesting to me whenever these events, and sadly, you know, you never want to see one of these events take place. We've seen them with Sonny Kim and others. The public. If you think back, step back, obviously you guys would be a little different, but the general public, how often do you ever have in your lifetime an interaction with a police officer? You know, for most people, that interaction is maybe a hi-bye as you pass them at a convenience store or something like that. But unless there's some tragic event, a lot of people never really have an interaction with a police officer, but yet in these moments, that line yesterday for the public visitation stretched out around the building, and the public comes out because while you may not have an interaction, you know that the men and women in uniform are out there serving each and every day, putting their life on the line, you know, putting out those fires and those hot spots in different neighborhoods and different places, and serving your community, whether you deal with him personally or not, but you come out and say, thank you.
The most visible form of government, your police officers are. And over the years, we've become really integrated with those communities. I remember I was the district commander in District 5, which was College Hill, Northside, Clifton, and Cuff. You really got to know them, they got to know you, and you really felt like, I'm really part of this community. So they grieve too, because that's their officer. You know what I mean? In a lot of cases, they feel, that's my officer. So, you know, law enforcement agrees, but our communities are grieving too, because they're very close to their officers.
So he was last, before he retired just, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, he was out at the District 5 headquarters for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, but he was involved. Larry Henderson was involved in like everything, wasn't he? SWAT, all kinds of different things. Dive team.
He picked up the ball and ran. You know, he was at Anderson Mercy. I live in a neighborhood that has a police protective detail, and he worked the detail for a while. So I don't think anybody in the neighborhood knew who he was, but he was there, and they acknowledged him. And if you saw the video from this morning out at in Anderson, there were thousands of people out there. There were kids took off school to see it. So the community's grieving.
Here we are, 20 minutes after noon, and in case you did just join us during the noon hour, of course, the funeral ended a short time ago, just after the noon hour. Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey, of course, speaking during that funeral. I'm going to listen to a little bit of what she had to say.
On behalf of Deputy Larry Henderson, the family of Deputy Henderson, and the entire Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, I want to thank everyone for the outpouring of support from throughout the state of Ohio and our great nation. Here, we are united in grief as we reflect the life and service of Deputy Larry Henderson. Today, we are reminded that we, as we are called to service, we raise our hand. We swear the oath to walk the path of justice. And in our mirrored reflection, our family, our moms, our dads, our wives, our husbands, our children, they have their hands raised too, to acknowledge the sacrifice and support for what we have been called to do. And as we travel the road of justice, it climbs. It climbs to the most narrowed and steepest of trails. At times, our very lives hang in the balance. Yet each of us press on with courage to endure the most challenging of circumstances. Some making the ultimate sacrifice. It is then, in the darkest of times, that we must grab on to each other so as to not lose our way. And when the road clears and the path is wide, the weather calm, it is then that we rest. It is then that we mourn. It is then that we celebrate the times that we have joined hands, the times we have embraced, and the times that we have raised our glasses in salute of our love and friendship. It is now in the brotherhood and the sisterhood of our families that Deputy Larry Henderson is with us, and we are with him. Each of us knowing in our hearts that we will never walk alone.
You have heard from Charmaine McGuffey, the sheriff of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department sheriff. She spoke at times in that speech, you could feel anger rolling off of her, and at times incredible sadness. We have watched her for the past week be emotional. Obviously, she said she remembers Larry Henderson when he was just coming into the department. So she has known this man for an extremely long time. And we talked about this a little bit ago, that you don't know, you talked about it as an ambush, you don't know what might happen to you, but he had ended his real service, right? He had retired after 33 years. He had the opportunity, he could, and then immediately signed back up to be a special deputy, which means he could come back and do details like he did last Friday. So as a family member, you think, okay, or do you? Like, he's done.
Right.
We can rest.
The tough duty is
We can
tough.
relax.
Yeah,
He's just going to run traffic detail now.
Right.
There's nothing that could happen from this point forward. And I don't know that this happened, but you almost envision that they're like, okay, we can rest, we can relax. And the minute you let your guard down, unfortunately, something like this occurs.
I think that hits home. I retired from Cincinnati Police Department and kind of did the same thing, went back to work for Marymount on a part-time basis. And when this happened last week, it's like, friend, it could happen, right? So you need to be mindful of that. And kind of hit home with me because I'm in the same situation, you know what I mean? It's just, boy, sometimes you just don't think of that.
If we can talk about the family briefly here, there are a lot of questions that pop up. What happens to the family now? We know that there's that thin blue line, that thread that connects all of you, but that includes your family, but there's also an organization that specifically focuses on the family members.
Right, and that's called the SHIELD. The SHIELD raises funding, and as soon as these events unfold, when we get officers that are seriously hurt or killed in the line of duty, the SHIELD is in on the ground floor with the family, providing resources, services, getting family members in for funerals. Whatever the family needs, we can provide them with whatever that is through that account. And anybody can donate. TheShieldOhio.com is the way people can donate to that. And I know that Chief Snow from Indian Hill, he's the president of that organization. Chief Rick Hines from Marymount, he administers the services. So they've been on the ground since Friday night, working with the family, making sure they got everything they need to get through this. And I will call it an ordeal. This is going to be an ordeal today. Really hard on them.
And it's so important. I think those services, we've all lost someone in our life. You look back and you think about when the funeral took place, and there are blank spots.
No.
Did that even happen? You don't realize until you see photos or somebody reminds you, no, we took care of that or we did that. There are so many things and so many moving parts. So an agency like the Shield coming in and saying, we got you. We're going to take care of these things, that way you don't have to deal with them.
Yes, and it's a rough time, and at least we're there saying, you don't worry. Yeah. You tell us what you need. We're going to make it happen.
I should mention we are still waiting for that processional to start that will go from the Cintas Center to Spring Grove. So these families, I mean, a 4-hour visitation yesterday, a visitation today, a funeral today, a graveside service today. This is a lot, but they will be surrounded by the brothers and sisters that they now have in the Sheriff's Department.
And there's another organization, too, we didn't mention. It's COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors. When Dan Pope got murdered, Linda Pope was surrounded by him almost instantly. It's widows and widowers, and they basically surround the family. They've been through it. It's like when a police officer is involved in a police-involved shooting. Officers are involved in it, surround them, and that particular group, you'll see the license plate. It's around it in Ohio. It says COPS, and there's one in Kentucky. Their sole goal is to support that family, and they're amazing. Linda Pope has spoken about it many times. It's just an incredible organization that's there for the family.
We'd like to go back out to Andrew Rowan now, keeping a close eye on the developments out at the Cintas Center as we prepare for traffic to start moving. I see a lot of blinking lights, of course, behind you as the patrol cars are getting ready. Andrew, what can you update us about?
Well, Craig, just to add to the discussion that the family is going to be surrounded, that is even going to happen between the time they leave here at the Cintas Center and go to the cemetery. The way this procession is laid out from our vantage point is you've got all these Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy vehicles all have their flashing lights. At the beginning of the procession is a motorcycle unit. It looks to be even 24 or so motorcycles. Between all those motorcycles and those flashing lights from Hamilton County that you just saw is a good portion of the family, just regular vehicles. We saw them come out of the Cintas Center, got in their cars, and then went in front of all those flashing lights. So at this point, what we're waiting for is basically the motorcycles to begin their route. We've seen some of those riders mount. On the other side, if we do a 180, essentially you've got all these different departments waiting to go behind the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office vehicles. They have said, they've been telling us in the parking lot since we've been here, they're here to show their solidarity, to show their support. The other thing that struck me standing out here, we talked about family, or you all talked about family earlier, is the number of spouses who came with these officers to pay their respects, to show the family that they'll never be alone. So at this point, all the flashing lights are here. Some people are still waiting to get into their vehicles because we have a lot of people in front of us before we get to this portion. But over 100 departments, that is when I stopped keeping track as they were coming in this morning, showing their respects here, Craig.
Actually, it's Tanya. So you mentioned that there are more than 100 different departments. I know you were creating a bit of a list for us. Would you mind detailing a little bit of which different departments you saw both locally and maybe even nationally?
Sure. I mean, as far away as New York, Dallas, and New York, Dallas, Chicago, I believe, was the third one. They were part of a group. Pretty much any organization, I'll just read off some that I've been making on my list. Forest Park, Sharonville, Indian Hill, the Municipal Court, the Youth Division of the Court, Norwood, Springfield, Fort Wright. We saw as far away as Louisville, and actually I'm going to take you down the hill as I'm listing some of these off because we're hearing the motorcycles start to power up their engines. Fairfield Township, Middletown. We know from Franklin County there were about 25 vehicles here earlier. And as you can see there, the procession is starting to move, Tanya.
Yeah, we do see that. We see those motorcycles beginning, a long line of motorcycles. And as Andrew mentioned, we're going to stay with Andrew and with this shot for a little while. That behind them will start all the Hamilton, the hearse, and then all the Hamilton County deputies as well. I'm not sure if the hearse goes behind the deputies' vehicles or right behind the motorcycles. Do you gentlemen know by chance?
I think in this case they've got the hearse behind
There it is.
sheriff's
There it
deputy cars. Now they're moving. Now it'll take a while to unpack this, but just imagine on the other end, we've got to pack all these vehicles too. So
Right.
probably even a greater chore. Now there'll be motorcycles along the route helping us get this shut down. Now there's lots of communication here because, as you can imagine, with this many cars, this much moving parts, not everything is going to go scripted.
If I could, you know, Eric, you used to be on the division or unit, if you will, for those presidential visits. So you were part of some of the intricacies that go into something like this when you have this much of a movement, a priority movement through an area. Kind of explain what does go in.
This is planned almost, I was thinking about this yesterday. Everything about this is on the same level of a presidential visit. The security at the center today, last night, as they're moving, they have traffic posts. We probably have some officers over from Kentucky helping with traffic. So the entire route will be shut down completely. There's be no chance of any traffic interfering with it, and it's coordinated on a city, county, state level. All the officers in the procession are all on a national band. Every officer in that route can hear what's going on. Any diversions, anything that goes on, they're all communicating and listening.
I think if we could take a look at that processional occurring, we can see how long it's going to stretch out before all of us. And for those, just keep in mind, folks, for those of you at home, this is going to cause traffic issues, of course, from anywhere from the Cintas Center down to Spring Grove. As it will happen through there, they will shut down the roads, and those roads are going to stay shut down for quite some time because you will marvel at how many vehicles are involved here. It can stretch miles.
One thing that struck me when Andrew was talking about people showing up out there is the spouses.
Hold on, can you just for a moment, Andrew? I heard Andrew call me. Andrew Rowan, I heard you just real quickly. Did you want us to interject something here?
I just wanted to add, we tried to count the number of vehicles, and I believe there's over 300 from other departments, not including the Hamilton County Sheriff's vehicles. So that is the part that we're seeing now. This is the first of the Hamilton County vehicles.
Okay, so Andrew was saying, for those of you who couldn't hear that, more than 300 vehicles, and that's just from the other department.
And we're just seeing the Hamilton County vehicles start pulling out now, so we do have a little ways to go here before we get everyone on the road, of course. But Andrew was talking about the number of spouses that he saw that came with those officers from other cities, other townships, out of state. What does that signal to you guys?
It's part of our DNA. Our families are part of our jobs. When we go to work, my wife would always kiss me and ask me to stay safe and come home and see her. And part of this is taking your family with you.
Is that something that she would say to you every day as she walked out the door, or as often as possible?
Yeah, and when I retired, she told me that she prayed for me every day after I left. It was deep.
Yeah, that's very deep.
So,
yeah.
You said 300. I think I saw the drone video. There's more like 500 cars in that lot.
I just wonder if the tail's even going to be able to get out before the lead gets into the cemetery, Eric.
Is that possible?
I think that
Absolutely.
could be possible.
Yeah, this is a huge, this is on the levels of when Sonny Kim was murdered. So you probably have a sheriff car from every one of the 88 counties in Ohio, along with Kentucky and Indiana, probably sent huge numbers of sheriff's deputies. You saw the bomb squad leading this. Probably every marked unit in the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is there. I know the Delhi's covering Anderson Township, or had been. So probably every uniformed officer that wanted to be there from the sheriff's office is there.
So that's a lot. That's an awful lot. We know that the governor of Ohio was there. The Ohio Attorney General was present. Plenty of other folks as well. So lots of people wanted to be there for the family and to honor this deputy on his on this particular day.
And obviously we have crews that are positioned in different key locations as this processional continues and extends out, to your point, all the way to Spring Grove, as perhaps they're still leaving the Cintas Center. And then once they do get to Spring Grove, we'll continue the burial services there and the graveside services that
So
will
that
take place.
took approximately 30 minutes to get that underway. From the moment the end of the service was at about 12:01. It's now 12:36. So imagine on the back end, it's going to be as long as that, if not a little longer, before they can even begin the burial service, Joe.
I think they've done an incredible job so far. Getting off in 30 minutes, if that's what it was, they've done an incredible job.
Why the need? You talked about all 88 counties would send at least one vehicle. And we should touch on this too. Don't worry, the county is being covered right now. So sheriff's deputies want to be, you know, all sheriff's deputies want to be at this service, but they are being covered. But we want to go ahead and go to our next video location. We have a camera at Martin Luther King Boulevard and Gilbert Road. So let's go look at that, because the processional should be heading there at this point. Okay, you see the police officers standing ready for this. They know it's coming quickly. And so there's the Cincinnati Police Traffic Division. But you talk about other agencies are covering for Hamilton County right now, correct?
That's correct. I talked to Chief Deputy Ketterman last night. He said, I'm going through Anderson, and I've got Marymount and all these other cars covering. And just gratitude, that so thankful to just pitch in and help out. So that's what we're doing. Everybody's giving the officers a chance to be there to say goodbye to their...
Why officers from all over? Why did they come?
We're one.
Yeah.
We're one. Solidarity, we're all one.
I know a lot of times there are joint training sessions that take place where officers will leave here and go to, say, D.C., or they'll go down to Dallas, and they'll go to different regions, whether that's extractions from buildings or cars or whatever scenarios you're training on. Sometimes those are regional connections that also happen as part of the networking within the badge community.
I don't know if you saw it. There's an ATF bomb squad truck in this procession in the lead. I mean, and it appeared it was before all the sheriffs.
Well, wasn't he on the Joint Terrorism Task Force?
Yes.
Was okay.
And he was on bomb squad?
Yes.
SWAT team, dive team. So he touched a lot of different agencies, and you know, because it being on those joint task forces, you do get to know a lot of different people from different agencies, correct?
Absolutely. That's you know, my assignment. I knew people from all around the region just because I was on a specialized assignment. I know, Dave, you were the same way.
But think of what Dallas, New York, Chicago, think of what they've gone through with officers the past how many years. Tragic situations, multiple officers killed at one time. So they know, they appreciate, and that's why you're seeing them here. They remember.
In all likelihood, Hamilton County and Cincinnati probably sent cars and deputies and officers to those funerals as well.
Yes, I believe we did.
Especially after 9/11. I know there were big details that left here and went up there to honor and support the families and the officers as well, and the firefighters and everyone, the entire community, obviously, in New York.
Right. It's police solidarity, but I think you brought up good. It's first responders. You're all on the same boat, right? We're all doing the same things. We're trying to make sure that people can be safe and families can be safe, and we've all got that thread in common. So it's the fire department, the military, you know, police. They're all out there on the front lines, and we all got to work together.
And that military threat, I mean, on both forces, Cincinnati PD, Hamilton County, and many agencies are in the greater Cincinnati area and across the country for that matter, but there are hundreds of veterans on these forces that have not only that brotherhood and that camaraderie, but then that thread continues on in the police force as well.
But did you catch Lieutenant Downing talking about Larry's uniform?
Oh, how the medals were all shining.
Everything's just, well, you know how that goes, right? So everything's got to be just so.
Sure.
And that's
especially as a Marine.
Right. Well, Marines, yes, and the grooming, and he was just. And you know those folks. Those are the folks that they just take pride in. I am an officer.
Right.
I am here, and you just got this yesterday. That just a sharp, you know, officer.
Well, a story I was able to highlight, in fact, this week is that. A gentleman by the name of Matt Disher, who is now, you know, an adult and going on with his career, but he served in the Marine Corps. And the reason he served in the Marine Corps is when he was a senior in high school at Anderson Township, in Anderson High, he and his buddies would hang out at a BP gas station, late at night, you know, and there was a deputy that would stop by, and it was Larry Henderson. And over time, they started talking, and he shared his journey through the Marine Corps. And Matt said that he was on the fence. His father had served, his older brother served, but he was on the fence. Do I serve? Do I not serve? What have you? And through those conversations with Deputy Henderson, he made the decision, not only am I going to serve, but I'm going to serve in the United States Marine Corps. And through that process, Deputy Henderson actually wrote him letters during basic training.
Oh,
and he said, don't be the best, but don't be the worst. Be right in the middle. Don't stand out during basic training. Giving him that sage advice, like don't pop your head above water and don't stay too long below water, and you'll survive and you'll be just fine. And it's sage advice that he took. And he said that 3 out of the 5 guys that they kind of hung out all the time together actually joined the military, different branches, and it was an influence because of Deputy Henderson. Took that time, 10, 15 minutes here and there, to share advice and talk to him.
We're talking about what a good guy he was, that he gave this advice, that he remained in contact with that Marine. We actually compiled a bunch of clips of people we spoke to through the last 7 days about Deputy Henderson. Was going to try to go to that. We'll try to go to that in a little bit. But one of the things that we heard over and over, you talked about how crisp and clean and ironed he was. His medals were together. His shoes were shined, but he had a great sense of humor. And he loved to kind of just give it to everybody. That was a lot of fun to hear. It was a lot of fun to hear, like especially Lieutenant Downing, who was his commander from that from his last district, District 5, and to hear him talk about that. Let's go out to where Gilbert and MLK meet, and there you see the motorcycle units headed our way. Can we hear that go by, that processional? I asked for that sound to be brought up because it is quiet, but you can see just the sound of those motorcycles rolling by speaks volumes.
Such a solemn event, obviously, and to see the public come out for these types of events as well, just to take that moment out of their day to stand there and
You know what sticks in my mind? I remember when we were doing a procession for Pope and Jeter, and we were going through Glendale, and the kids came out of school, and they were saluting. It's like, never forget. Never forget that. Never. My whole life.
And remember Sonny, as we were going up through right through the middle of Montgomery. The crowds were so big they were out in the street.
Right.
People holding flags, saluting. And it's hard to keep dry eyes when that.
It was very, very moving. It's going to be very moving for these officers in these cars. And what's going on right now, probably little talking, probably a lot of reflecting.
We understand that this is going to go past the location where he was hit, and that is MLK and Burnett Woods.
I've worked that post before. It's a very challenging post. You're trying to get people in and out of the Woodside Garage. You got people coming down the hill, people coming up the hill. It's very, very challenging to get folks in and out of there.
Were you there for like games, or this was commencement, of course?
Right, but that's always a post to get people in and out of the garage and get traffic moving.
And you're controlling the box there, the electronic system, to move those lights.
If it gets knotted up there, it don't get better below, and it don't get better above. See, that person there is very critical. It's a very challenging job.
And that's why Larry was there, because he was familiar with it.
He knew how to do it, right? He's run that post, I believe, before.
So you've stood exactly in that spot where he was before.
You know, it wasn't very long ago. I did a UC game, and I was standing there running that light.
Did that?
I was thinking about that the other day, too. I'm like, I was at that post. And lots of parallels here with this. I'm like, I was at that post, and you talk about the family, and, you know, my dad was a firefighter. My mom went through a lot of that, and I know she worried about me, too, and it takes a toll every time you go into work. I'm sure she worried. She's out there today, my mom, Janet, hi. So it does, and
not to put this into the context, but clearly that first thought to your mind is, it could have been you, you know.
Could have been, you know what, and Chief Kitterman brought that up last night. It could have been anybody. It could have been anybody with the motivation that this individual had. It was Larry, but it could have been anybody.
We actually heard that at the service today from his commander. He talked about how this could have been any one of us.
Right.
And he was the one.
You know,
senseless.
We worked, both of us have worked traffic. I worked River Bend for probably 15 years of my career. Never once did I ever think that somebody would try and kill me while I was running a light box. Or, yeah, there's some inherent things that go along with directing traffic. You have to be careful. But he was off the roadway, standing next to a pole, next to a box, that the impact knocked the box off the pole. This guy murdered him. And in a million years, I'd have never been watching for something like that to happen.
I mean, you've been, in both of you, in rough situations where you thought, okay, I better be hyper aware, hyper vigilant, certainly, right?
The riots, yeah.
Riots come to mind. I remember those. Mm-hmm. Running traffic, running a traffic box, not high on that list, is it?
Another dimension added to what you really need to be mindful of. And again, somebody told me years ago, you put on that uniform, you got to be prepared for anything.
We do see, I think that must be a fire station nearby. Those look like firefighters, if I can be so bold to assume that, standing there at attention, watching this. Yes, it is. Cincinnati Fire Department, they pulled the truck aside. It is so nice to see them standing there, just paying their respects in the most solemn and quiet way, but just to be there, I'm sure, for the family, for the other deputies, it means something to them for sure. I want to go to Deja Gross. She's standing by at that location, at that cross section, where unfortunately Deputy Henderson lost his life. Let's go there now. Deja?
Hey, Tanya. Yeah, it looks like it's coming down right now, actually. And so we have people lined up on both sides of the streets holding flags. You have officers saluting. And also we have a few people drop off more flowers here at the crash site. Now, one thing that stuck out to me was that someone said that my heart weeps that this happened. And that's the feeling that I'm feeling here right now. I was here when the incident took place, and it's just been silent the entire time. I'm just gonna go ahead and be a little quiet now as things move by. But we have people right here where I'm at on Burnett Woods and MLK, all the way up the street. And I've just seen many notes, more balloons, talking about how Deputy Henderson was a hero. Some notes even said that you are the pride of Cincinnati, and to please know that your thoughts and prayers of the students of this campus and the people of the city are with you. In addition to that, Deputy Henderson also served 20 years here at UC as he worked for security for the UC's football team. And spent nearly 20 years volunteering. We also have some people from the university hospital standing outside as well. And it's just silent, just everyone is just paying their respects to the Deputy Henderson at this moment.
Deja, I wonder how it's striking you, and if you've been able to talk to any of those folks who've been standing there holding flags or signs or just, you know, peacefully watching, and what they've said to you.
Yeah, I haven't been able to speak with anyone just yet. However, I will tell you, Tanya, when I was here, it was a joyous day. You know, people were coming here excited to celebrate graduation. People were coming from all over the place, from near and far, and then just to see the shock on their face and just the fear after seeing the crash site of what happened to Deputy Henderson and just wishing and hoping that he will be okay, to now seeing more people just being out here paying respect to him. And some people even coming back. Like I said, there's a lot of students out here as well. But just a sad feeling. There's no other way I can explain it, but just an unfortunate, eerie gut feeling in this moment.
All right, Deja, if we can continue to keep this shot up right now as we watch the procession go by. Gentlemen, you know, you see the thin blue line flag there, other people holding an American flag. We saw large flags, we saw saluting, standing at attention, the kind of a whole combination of people out there doing what they need to do to honor in this moment. What do you take away when you're seeing this scene?
Well, keep in mind, the vast majority of the public really support law enforcement. If you're at home, imagine it's quiet. Everything around this procession is shut down, silent, except for the roar of those motorcycles. Can you imagine sitting in this car, you lost one of your family members, you're in this procession, you hear the roar of these motorcycles, but the whole world around you now has stopped. I think she had a good word, eerie. That was a good word to describe, and I felt that before. It's like, it's so eerie quiet. I'm in this, and I can tell you when we were doing Officer Kim, we're going up Montgomery Road, and a train cut through the procession, didn't plan on it, right there at Silverton. And somebody told me about it, and I'd been so preoccupied that whole week, it kind of hit me right there. We're in a funeral procession because we did all this time planning and nuts and bolts and never took time to, oh Lord, what happened?
Right.
And it's going to be a challenge for these commanders, and I was talking to the deputy chief last night. You stand up there in front of your troops, and you gotta be that model, right? But you're probably grieving as much as everybody else.
You decompartmentalize just as much as everyone else,
right?
Especially even more as a commander, because you have to keep that face on for the troops. And so, to your point, going through the planning process, perhaps they haven't dealt with any of the grief or any of the association with it.
I would venture to say that they've been so preoccupied that now they're feeling it. Now with this silence in this procession, these people in the car are now starting to feel the reality.
The heavy weight of
Yes, I think this is where you're going to start feeling it. That's where I felt it. Like I said, Craig, I sat there thinking to myself, a train, you're kidding me, a train, and it's the real deal.
You're looking at Clifton and McAlpin right there, and as you see, we're following this procession as it heads towards Spring Grove Cemetery. I would imagine Cintas Center is still not cleared out of vehicles, but there is indeed the hearse carrying Deputy Larry Henderson coming right by our cameras there.
You can see the officers and the firefighters present arms there, a salute, a final salute.
We saw families. You see families on the side of the road. You know, I think I just saw a young girl with her mom and dad, what seemed to look like a family to me anyway, standing there at the site where he was unfortunately hit and killed. I think it's so interesting and says something important when people bring their children to something like this, to have them see what was left behind. And you just saw a salute given there, by the way. But it's such an important thing to teach our children too, isn't it?
And it's different, and I raised my children, I was a cop. It's different for people that aren't law enforcement, and sometimes I have to take a deep breath and think when they're expressing themselves, why haven't you paid attention to this? Why did it take an officer being murdered for you to engage in this? And that's my reality. But a lot of families reach out, and I'm sure in this case, I've had dozens of people that know I'm a retired officer reach out to me, and I'm sure, Dave, you've had the same thing, to express their condolences. And I've had neighbors in the past bring their kids over so I could talk to them about what happens at a funeral for an officer. So it's a different reality, and unfortunately, I'm stuck on the other side, and I kind of miss it sometimes.
Do you, in these times when there has been an unfortunate death of an officer, do you feel yourself surrounded by friends and family?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people still ask us, are you okay? You know, and everybody deals with it differently. And, you know, coming here today is kind of, I feel like if there's something I can do, and this is something I can do to help people understand what's going on here, or even how we felt being there. At least the audience knows what our thoughts were at the time.
And Craig, you'll understand this. How many times have you talked to a veteran and they're like, yeah, I'm okay. We're not okay. No. There's somebody was murdered, and we're just like the rest of the population. If anybody has a family member murdered, you're gonna grieve.
It's a hole, right?
A huge hole, and we have an extended family, so we grieve.
We grieve differently. I think those in the military, and if I can speak on your behalf, that in law enforcement as well, we do grieve differently, and we process things differently. And to your point, no, I'm fine. I'm good.
Oh, you're watching
and you move on. It's almost like the old saying, if you go back decades, rub some dirt on it and move on. And there's something to be said about that, is that how we kind of dealt with things.
I think I grew up in that, the old school deal with it. But I remember, we're talking about the clergy team, I had a good friend of mine that was one of the clergy members. He would drop by District 5. Jack Marsh was his name. And he'd come in and, hey, I want to check on you. Well, why'd you come in here today? And he was basically reading me, are you okay?
Yeah, right.
And you needed that. Like, Jack, you checking on me? Yeah. So, but you need those people to check in on you. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
I had reason to call Lieutenant Cunningham, who is the public information officer for CPD, unfortunately last Friday, and it was in regard to this situation. And I've dealt with him on so many occasions. I said, Lieutenant, are you okay? And he said, yeah, and he expressed himself just a little bit. And I said, what can we do? And he said, hold them close to you. And everyone needs to put their arms around police officers and deputies at this time. We need the support. And it struck me so heavily that this man that I know professionally would feel that he could say that, and he clearly meant it in that moment, and I believe it to be true.
Lieutenant Cunningham, a real genuine person, and I got to talk to him last night along with Chief DG. Got to talk to him for a little bit, and they relayed some of their thoughts to me, and it's the same thing we've been talking about here, but talked to Lieutenant Cunningham, and same thing, you know. Just genuine, very, very good at what he does.
All right, we want to go out to Spring Grove now, actually. We're talking about how long this procession is. Taking a shot now, it's arriving now at Spring Grove Cemetery.
Let's listen. The hearse carrying Lieutenant Henderson, entering into what will be his final resting place, and that is Spring Grove. Those police officers at attention. I'm sorry that makes anyone choke up to see that happen. Entering through a gate, an arch created by the Cincinnati Fire Department, which hangs the American flag, the thin blue line flag, and you'll see all those vehicles enter into there. The motorcycle police officers went another direction because they're going to park far enough away and walk back to the situation. I don't know if anyone in production is monitoring what's happening at the Cintas Center and can tell us, has the tail of this procession left Cintas Center? No, it has not.
This is Cintas right here. Look at that.
I figured.
That's Miami Township.
I see Covington.
Covington. You talk about, Captain Bailey, the moment, and you mentioned it here like during this shot earlier, the moment of realization where you're coming out of the planning process, you're coming out of all of this, when you start seeing the vehicles go through there at Spring Grove. If it hasn't hit you at that point, you know, that is, I think, a realization that all that planning, all the preoccupied mindset that you might have been in this entire time, that, you know, that shot going into Spring Grove is definitely one of finality.
And there, like I said, there's different parts of these that'll move you. Mm-hmm. As Tanya expressed, coming into the cemetery is moving. It's moving for those officers there, your final salute, and now we got some other events that are going to go along with this service that are equally as moving.
These are the vehicles moving into the cemetery. You're looking inside Spring Grove Cemetery, and you see people with flags or without, just standing at attention, watching this procession wind its way through what is an absolutely beautiful cemetery. Thank goodness for the family, for the deputy, that this is a beautiful day amongst the so many rainy days that we have had in the last several weeks, that we, you know, Mother Nature shined upon everyone today, that this is a mild and beautiful sunny day, and they will They are very good at Spring Grove. They have figured out where to put all of these vehicles. It is a very organized place to make sure that that everyone is handled, and then they will begin the last portion of this day as far as laying Deputy Henderson.
And of course, you saw what was the American flag there, emblazoned with the United States Marine Corps emblem, and a U.S. Marine holding that flag, U.S. Marine veteran there holding that flag as well, honoring his service both to country and community. I mean, you're talking about a man who served the community and our country on many levels.
And because you two can't hear, are flanking us here, we are hearing chimes. Bells coming from the chapel there, perhaps, or maybe from a speaker, but we are hearing chimes, and you are seeing, I assume that those are Hamilton County deputies, gentlemen?
Likely, yeah. They're all the deputies' uniforms throughout the United States pretty much look the same, so they could be from anywhere.
What we'll see once this is all settled and the casket is then brought out and that type of thing, is we will see a riderless horse. We will see a 21-gun salute. We will hear taps, and I assume we'll hear the last call.
Right. And can you imagine the serene setting of this, what that's going to add to this? It's a beautiful place. I was there last night.
Did you go to the visitation there last night?
I was last night, I was there. I got to talk to a bunch of people. And as like I said, I was talking to everybody, but came up with the same thing, just a good guy, a good servant, great deputy, just everybody.
Let's talk about this family for a moment. Okay, so this is a man, he and his wife raised 5 children. They have 4 grandchildren, and he gave his time in the military. Then he gave 33 years of service to the sheriff's department. Retires, goes immediately back into special service. So is available to help in things when they need extra bodies. And they've raised their children out the house. Now they've got grandchildren. Now they're fostering the most needy children that they could. They don't ask for like, oh yeah, we'd like a perfectly healthy 5-year-old. They're saying, give us the newborn who may not live. Give us the child who is very difficult, and they took them in.
Substance addicted, you know, it's an amazing, it shows you the heart that he had and his wife, clearly, wanting to still serve.
It takes husband and wife to want to make that commitment, and having dealt with the population that he's dealt with his whole career, it speaks to what a great human being he is.
And that's really evidence. The sheriff's office gave me commendation after commendation. We could
you have a stack in
a stack,
you
right?
have a stack about an
and
inch thick.
I think the chief deputy said, not only did he provide great service, but he motivated people to comment on it, right? That's a special person. So we now know he's a special person on duty and off, just a good all-around person.
And his family, my wife is friends with the family, and it's huge, and they're all good people. It runs in the DNA in that family. They're all people of service. They all work hard. You look back, his grandfather was a Marine. His father was a Marine. He's a Marine. And you talk about, he was a proud Marine. If you ever drive by his house, there's a flag in the front yard on a pole.
Sure.
American flag. the Marine, the core flag's there.
The globe and eagle.
He had the tattoos. You knew he was a Marine.
Tattoos to prove it.
Yeah.
Connor Steffen, one of our reporters, is standing by. He is outside, right at Spring Grove there. Connor, let me just tell you this. It is 4 miles from the Cintas Center to Spring Grove, and Cintas Center still has vehicles leaving it. And you know that procession has already entered Spring Grove, where you are located.
Well, Tanya, I was actually listening in when you said that, and I was sharing that with the people who are here watching what's happening. It is hard to put into words. You know, you choked up. I can tell you there were many people here choking up as that hearse entered the cemetery, people paying their respects here. I actually have a few of them with me right now. Rick Andres and Joe Hay, you guys go ahead, come in. They are here to pay their respects, also here to support the Henderson family. I'm going to start with you, Rick. Why is it so important that you are here today? What brought you here to pay your respects?
That's it, just to show respect. Let the family and the other officers know they're not in this alone. a lot of people in this town and all across the country are behind him 100%. We definitely are.
And Joe, seeing that hearse enter the cemetery and knowing that the tail end of that procession is still at the Cintas Center, which is 15 minutes away from here, tell me what's going through your mind as you hear that.
It didn't surprise me at all. These officers seem to me that they just don't get the praise and the admiration that they deserve. They should get that every day, not just on these tragic occurrences. That's pretty much all I've got there.
And I want to ask one more question to you, Rick. We were talking about, there's been a lot of stories done on Deputy Henderson. We're getting a really good idea of who he was, how amazing of a person he was. Is there something you've heard this past week that stuck out to you about who he was? Because I know you didn't know him personally. You said that you guys know someone who knew him. Is there something that sticks out to you?
I heard that he had taken in some foster children too. I mean, above and beyond everything else he's done for 30 plus years. To pull that off, I mean, that shows love, man. Oh, it's tough.
Obviously, you're here draped in the thin blue line.
Yes.
You got a sheriff's shirt on, so you're getting emotional. This means a lot to you. This means a lot to a lot of people.
A whole lot, yeah.
What do you hope people take away, and this is a question for both of you, what do you guys hope people take away from this day marking the end of an amazing life and seeing all these law enforcement officers here to do that? What do you want people to take away watching at home that can't be here to experience what you guys are?
Just to know how many people showed up and how big this thing is. You said it's still at the Cintas Center. It's just, it's something everybody ought to pay attention to. It's time to everybody get together and stop the divide and stuff. It's just killing us, the whole country. We need to really get together here.
And just the respect that the officers deserve, like I said earlier, everybody here has the respect. We just need the whole city to jump in and have the same respect.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. And guys, the ceremony at the gravesite as well as the burial will be taking place here soon. The family was gracious enough to let us bring in cameras so we can film some of it, be respectful, and then show that to you at home who is not able to see it. That will all start this afternoon. Tanya.
Okay, thanks so much, Connor. And actually, I want to talk about that for a second. So this family is extremely, I don't know them, but they, in our dealings with the Sheriff's Department, talking to them about like, what are we willing to show? What are they willing to allow us access to? They are very humble. They do not seek the limelight in any way, shape, or form. They have been reticent to let cameras in. So we are being, I promise you, we have respected every wish that they have asked for, up to and including that once we have heard that final call, the burial is private. Correct. That is for them. Right. We will not show that to you. We will end our coverage right before then so that they can have that time as a family, as a close-knit group that they desire. But we know that the community in general, and it is a service that we believe that we are doing for you at home, is to be able to bring all of this to you. We're so grateful to both of the gentlemen flanking us here to help us through this journey and this day, because we want you at home to be able to understand the gravity of this, the importance of it, and that this is not just a funeral, but it is something that our entire community is feeling.
And as we look at this procession continue here, about 2 minutes ago, the last vehicle pulled out of the Cintas Center. That just tells you how long, just over 30 minutes here, that the procession has been continuing to file out of Cintas on its way to Spring Grove. You know, Connor was speaking to those gentlemen outside of Spring Grove Cemetery, speaking about the positivity and some of the information that doesn't make headlines. When I spoke to the Marine veteran, Matt Disher, that was one thing that he pointed out, was that, you know, the stories of his impact on those young kids who then joined the service, or the other things that our officers do in our community, they don't make it to social media. They don't make the headlines. Typically, when you hear of officers involved in something, it's a tragic event, albeit an event like this, a shooting or what have you. It's not a lot of the positivity that we know is out there. And the police departments and townships, they've done a better job of getting that out on social media and
telling the good words.
And telling the good words, right? The positively Cincinnati aspect of what's going on in our communities. And one thing that Matt had pointed out, he said, you know, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went and worked in the 911 center for 2 years. He said, if you ever want to truly understand what police officers are going through, go call and ask to go volunteer and sit there for a day, for a shift, what have you, and listen to those calls and get an understanding of really what the men and women in uniform are doing out on the streets each and every day. And you'll get the good calls and the bad calls. You'll hear a good mix of all of it.
You know, if there's anybody that works harder than police officers and firemen, it's the call takers.
Oh, yeah.
And Dave was over that unit for a while, and I keep going back to that conversation. I saw your interview, and I was at that same BP station when I was a kid and had a deputy sheriff have the same discussion. Might have been along the lines of, you probably need to go in the service there.
Before you get somewhere else.
It's interesting, that BP, the sheriff's department in Anderson Township has been there, that's their hangout. I mean, the guy's name was Larry Oakes, and God rest his soul, if it hadn't been for him, I probably wouldn't be sitting right next to you right now.
We talk about the 911 callers, though. They're grieving today as well. They took these calls. They had to respond and make these officers, hey, get to this location. We have an officer down. And in fact, that day we were out shooting something, flood recovery story. I had just spoken to 3 Cincinnati police officers. They just finished their lunch. Said, hey, have a great day. Be safe out there. Not 2 minutes later, they go flying by and we get the alert, the text message out in the field that here's the call, here's what's going on. And we dispatched, of course, our news crews there. So those dispatchers are dealing with the same thing that these officers are dealing with today.
I ran a call center for a couple of years, and I could dispatch a little bit in the call taking, but if you sit behind those screens, and they've got 3 screens up in front of them, where cars are, what's holding, what's coming in, what's got, yes, it's very difficult to keep track of. And if something like this happens, they do a great job, and it's something we didn't mention throughout the broadcast, but something I do want to mention. We need to think of those folks up there, because that's where it starts. And if it doesn't get right up there, it doesn't get any better down the line. So,
well, and they get to know the officers as well.
Well, yes, they do.
Know, beyond the badge number that they're calling out.
It might just be a voice. You recognize that voice, but you know what? You know that voice, you recognize that voice, and that voice lets you think it's going to be okay.
Yeah. It's the nerve center for the whole deal.
It is.
The whole operation.
That's where it's got to be done right.
I want to talk about what's going to happen once everyone has gotten to Spring Grove Cemetery, once they have all gotten into the positions they need to get into. We know that, and I want to walk us through each of these, gentlemen. You know these things from planning funerals. The riderless horse, the 21 gun salute, the taps, and then we do believe that there will be the final call, and what that is, and all of these things. So let's start with the riderless horse. Can anyone help us through understand the significance of this and why they do this?
It goes back, it's a military tradition that's made its way into law enforcement, and it's basically recognizing our fallen brothers and sisters by bringing that. It started with the cavalry, and at a funeral they'd bring the horse by with the boots. I believe they face backwards.
Right. They do.
And that's made its way to law enforcement, and it's just to recognize our fallen brother or sister.
You're looking there, and what looks like the honor guard is moving into position. Could be flag corps, could be honor guard, I'm not sure. Color guard, maybe. But then we have the 21 gun salute. You'll hear 7 guns go off 3 different times. And it is jarring. It is very sad. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to point out, that's Lee right there.
That's his friend Lee?
Yeah.
That's Lee Edwards?
His best buddy?
Yeah, they worked UC games together. When UC travel on the road, they were there together.
I was able to talk to Lee the other day for about a half hour. Gained a lot of insight. They did a lot together.
And again, Lee is a great officer. I mean, I've got all the respect in the world for that man.
You talk about the jarriness of the 21 gun salute. When I was in the military, I did a number of these ceremonies. I folded more flags than I want to count for the cemeteries and for the funerals, and presented them to spouses and mothers. And when those rifles go off, there there's almost no words to explain it, to describe, at least for me, the feeling that I take away from it, knowing each one of those shots is almost representative of a final nail closing that coffin. That every one of those shots is, boom, this is it. Here she is gone. Rest in peace.
My goodness.
And that's what I take away from it. And I'm getting chills right now, actually just reminiscing about some of the things.
And the family's not going to expect it either. That's no. I mean, as many of as we've done, it's shocking because unless you're looking right at them, you don't know it's coming.
Yeah, you know it's going to happen, and yet it so randomly occurs that it just does jar you. I want you to, so that camera angle that you're seeing on the right there, that is our solo shot. I was talking earlier about the respect that we are trying to give the family who is absolutely grieving at this time, and we want to respect their wishes. We have one camera in there. It is a pool camera for every TV station in this market, and it is stationary. We will never get closer than its focal length and its lens can take us. It is positioned where you see it right now, and that is it. So we want you to understand that, and if you're wondering, like, why aren't you getting us closer? Why aren't we seeing people's faces? It is purposeful, and we are going to do that out of the respect of the family and their wishes.
We're still seeing the procession come in. We know, again, the last vehicle did leave about 15 minutes ago now from the Cintas Center, so we are getting closer to the end of the line here for the procession.
I wonder if we shouldn't go back to where Deja Gross is located and maybe go to Deja and see if it's past
where we stand there.
That is, she is at the location at Martin Luther King and Burnett Woods, where unfortunately 1 week ago, just about now, this deputy was violently hit and killed. Deja, you're there. Has the procession passed you entirely? Are there still cars coming? Are there people still gathering?
Yeah, there's still cars coming down and more people have gathered out here. And again, like I said, it's just quiet. People are just taking it all in. And the one word that I'm hearing a lot of people say is that it's just very sad. And I'm standing right here with Karen Campbell. She came out here, and Cameron, you told me that you were out and about when this took place, right? And
yes,
you couldn't pick up your daughter. Can you tell me about that?
I was on my way to pick up my child from school, and the next thing you know, I was diverted another way. And when I found out what happened, it was just devastating. I was devastated. I may not have ever met the gentleman, but everything I've heard about him, I feel like I've known him for a long time. I mean, it's a sad situation that happened. I feel for the family. My condolences go out to everyone.
And we spoke a little bit. I said that it's amazing. This is a sad situation, but it's brought so many people together. How are you feeling being out here right now?
I feel good. That I could come out and support this opportunity. I'd rather support it in another way, but it's beautiful what they do for these officers, firefighters, anybody in law enforcement. It's amazing.
Some people said they've never seen a procession like this before. Have you?
Yes, ma'am, I did a very long time ago. I can't even tell you how long ago it was. My children were younger, and we went to the one. I do believe it was the one that happened with Cole Rain a long time ago, but we were down at Spring Grove Cemetery and watched the procession from there. It's just a beautiful sight.
Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, Tanya, it's a really sad feeling. I think that this area, it kind of doesn't feel the same, or won't feel the same, because they'll always remember what happened right here, and that Deputy Henderson tragically lost his life. So again, there are more cars coming down right now, and I think we're coming to the tail end with the last few police cars from Cincinnati Police coming down this way. We're just going to pan out so you can see what we're seeing.
It's so nice to see so many people dotting that hillside and the sidewalks there. As you recall, if you were watching the service with us, and it's beautiful what he said, but Rabbi Mendy said the life that was taken was done during an act of evil, and that we need to now respond with light. That in the darkest of spaces, if you just even have a flicker of light, it is amazing what it can do. And I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but he talked about there is an incredible amount of hurt surrounding what happened 1 week ago and every event related to it, and that it is important at this moment in this community. And you heard those gentlemen talking to Connor Steffen a little bit ago about we all need to bond together at this time. This is a moment of inflection for all of us in our community to be able to say, let's let in light. Let's, as Rabbi Mendy said, and let's join our arms together instead of pushing each other away.
And that woman that Deja was speaking to there, the fact that, you know, her impact to this was she was diverted because the traffic and the road shut down during the incident 1 week ago.
She probably wasn't happy about it at the time.
Probably not. It was like, oh, okay, great, what's going on here? UC graduation, what have you. But when she found out the details, it hit her. As a member of this community, it struck her in a way that she wanted to come back out, and she wanted to stand here and be part of the procession and witness what was going on and pay her respects.
Right, and Eric and I, we can sit up there and talk about it, but aren't these really true ambassadors here for police community relations? I mean, I think they did a great job. How do they feel? They're touched. I mean, they're touched by what happened to the officers. And
you can see out that kind of shelter out in the distance, a pagoda or whatever that is. That is about where the family is located, as far as I could tell, when it was still sparse. And you can see it. That is a pretty good distance away. This green lawn that stretches in front of it is filling up rapidly with people who want to be there for the final portion of this funeral.
And for those at home, we're trying to get people in and get them staged. We're trying to get the vehicles parked. We're getting people in formation now. Once we achieve that, the colors will be ushered in by the honor guard, and we'll probably call everybody to attention for what will feel like hours. We'll be standing at attention.
Of course, Deputy Henderson's name will forever be etched in stone in memory. The police memorial, Cincinnati Police Memorial, has a number of names on it, and there's one pillar specific that is dedicated to non-CPD officers, and Deputy Henderson's name is already etched in that granite.
Right. It's when we redid the monument after Dan and Ron got killed, we made sure that we added a pillar just specifically for those officers, and I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised that his name's already on it. The company that does that's amazing. They do a great job. They don't charge us. They don't charge anybody. And that memorial is one of the nicest ones in the United States. Short of going to the one in Washington, D.C., I've never seen one that's anything close to ours.
There'll be a service next week?
Next Monday. 11 a.m. If probably be a big one based on what's happened here.
And his name will then also be added to the national memorial.
And I don't know if, I think that's not going to happen until next year at this point. That's next week as well.
By the way, you said Dan, you were talking about Dan Pope, Ron Jeter.
Yes.
So two officers who were killed, boy, what is it, 25 years ago now? Maybe more? And they were serving a warrant when that occurred. I just wanted to let people at home understand who you were talking about that time. Unfortunately, I feel like I've sat on this set so many times to do, whether that was a firefighter or a police officer, deputy, whatever, who has died in the line of duty to this community. We've sat here, Craig and I, far too many times. We've been with both you gentlemen far too many times.
And we always say we don't want to come back and do this, Tanya.
No, you
Nothing
don't.
against you, but it's just...
When you see my name pop up on your phone, do you always think, I don't want to answer this?
We're here to try to so we can provide a service to the family and so the people at home get an idea of what's going on. We're trying to make it as real as we can here.
Yeah.
And something to put into perspective here. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Department went 40 years without an officer being killed. And then in the last 3 years, and they both were Anderson deputies. You had two deputies. One crashed at 8 Mile in Beachmont, and now Larry was murdered, and that's a shock. I mean, when Dave and I came on the Cincinnati Police Department, we came in at the end of the 80s, and there had been a bunch of officers killed, and you hear about them in the academy. So institutionally, we were used to it. This agency, the burden and the shock that's happened here to them in the last 2 or 3 years is just, it's overwhelming, and my heart goes out to them. I haven't had the chance to talk to any of the guys, but I know they're probably questioning some things right now.
When you mentioned the academy, so these are young recruits who are just in the early stages, obviously, of choosing this career of law enforcement. What happens at the academy during something like this? What's the tone there?
I went through in '91, and they played videos. The in-car cameras had just come out, so they share what happens when an officer gets killed. If you go to our police academy, there's a wall outside that has all of them. Everybody's been killed in the line of duty.
District 1.
Right. And it's a great memory. Some of the districts, most of the districts, if somebody died, like Sonny Kim's got a plaque inside of District 2. But they spend a great deal of time talking to you as a recruit about what it is to lose a fellow member. If there were mistakes made, you look at this. You can't understand how somebody could, like I said, I've worked traffic posts, I've worked that traffic post. Never in a million years in any training I've ever had, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, do we ever talk about making sure your head's on a swivel while you're running a traffic light at a graduation from a university campus. It's just something that,
that's not a scenario you plan for, is it?
Right. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we graduating a police recruit class today?
I think they delayed it or they moved it up.
But it would have been today.
Or they moved it this morning.
So this class of officers are coming in to witness this today. This starts your career.
This is it.
And we kind of did it with Cliff George when I came on, but what a way to start a career. I mean, it's really, it's something to think about.
Does that raise your awareness more?
I would think so. And I told you, even now when I go out, if I do it, I mean, really, and like I said, they used to tell you, put on a uniform, you're vulnerable. And I never, like he said, the traffic post, really.
I want to mention, like Lieutenant Dave Downey, who gave the eulogy at the service, he talked about how by being a special deputy that day, that Henderson took a position in the line of fire. He took the place of another officer who would have been there had he not been willing to come in and help. And so he stood in for someone else and in the process lost his life. So Connor Steffen is standing by. He is right outside the gates at Spring Grove. Connor?
Hey guys, I'm going to step out of the way because we have some more cruisers making their way through here. It's a who's who of different cities and counties and different law enforcement agencies represented all throughout the tri-state and everywhere across the country. It reminds me of this one story I had earlier this week. Speaking with those who knew Deputy Henderson best, one of those people, his name's Keith Lewis. He's a security manager over at Mercy Anderson. And I asked him, I was asking, what is it going to be like to see so many of your brothers and sisters in blue here across the state? And he said, Connor, we're not just talking across the state. We're talking places like New York, California. We're talking all across the country. It's very representative of who Deputy Henderson was as a person. I mean, we've heard it all morning. There's not a single bad thing anyone has to say about him. To those who knew him best, he was seemingly everywhere and knew everyone, left an impression on everyone he met. That was what I got from the conversations I had. Another conversation I had this week was with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Eric Pfaffel. He, in 2001, met Henderson as a young recruit. Henderson was his trainer. He said it was absolutely the best thing for the start of his career, the best trainer he could have had. And the really somber moment here is when he told me that he was tasked with partly planning this procession, the funeral, the public service that we had here. Because you have to think about it, not only are the law enforcement officers who planned this amazing display of love and affection here today working on that, but they're also trying to work through mourning the loss of a close friend, a fellow officer. Another thing I heard while having conversations with those who knew him this week is he was absolutely the best law enforcement had to offer. But more than just that, he was a better person. And they made sure to emphasize that saying a lot, not just the best in law enforcement, but a better person, because you've got to be a pretty good person for them to say that. We're expecting a little bit later this afternoon the Graveside service to begin, along with the burial. What we know about that is that, and to honor him, there's going to be a riderless horse, a 21-gun salute, playing of the taps right here at Spring Grove Cemetery. You can see that we're sort of stalled here with all the cars that have driven by. I think for now, Tanya, this is as good of a time as ever to throw it back to you.
All right, Connor, and I do want to ask you, though, before I let you go entirely, we're starting to see more officers walk into the Spring Grove Cemetery there. But, Connor, do you see the end of the processional there? Has it come to an end?
No, Tanya, not yet. I still see a lot of cruisers still making their way up here. So I think we're getting close to the end, but the end, at least from my vantage point, still not in sight.
Okay. It is an amazing procession. It is something to behold. Thank you so much, Connor Steffen, for giving us your thoughts there and what you've experienced this week. If you talk to anyone else, please let us know. We'd love to hear from more people. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Connor mentioned it, and the captain and I were talking about it here briefly while Connor was speaking, talking about the reversed boots in the stirrups there, indication of obviously end of service, but looking backward toward family, those he served with.
Well, let's be clear. This is for what will be on the riderless horse, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Why is that so important in your thoughts from a symbolic standpoint?
So the boots are indicating that the departed is saying one last goodbye.
Mm-hmm. And it's historic going back to, you know, even Roman times, but more specifically used a lot, of course, in the military. And again, it's another symbolic. We've seen it with presidential burials. Obviously, every single Arlington cemetery procession and funeral that takes place, it's part of it.
So we are seeing what looks like, at this point, hundreds of people standing here waiting. And there are going to be more arriving. This procession has yet to come to an end. It's a little more than 4 miles, just about 4 miles between the Cintas Center and here at Spring Grove Cemetery, where this fallen deputy will be ultimately laid to rest, probably within the next hour or so. We know it took about a half an hour for them to get into the vehicles, get organized, and start leaving. We expect this is going to take just quite a little bit longer, like another 10, 15 minutes before they're even able to.
We're just over an hour to get to this point, and we still have officers getting out of their vehicles, arriving, and getting settled.
And you saw where Connor was located. I mean, they were starting to fill in on that side of, we're across the street from Spring Grove Cemetery. They were parking police vehicles along the side.
Both sides of the roads, yeah.
So they're running out of room.
I thought that would be a challenge, trying to get everybody staged.
I want to take a look back at the eulogy that was given by Lieutenant Dave Downing about an hour and a half ago now at the Cintas Center, and the incredible words that he had to say about his friend and colleague, Deputy Larry Henderson.
He was always respectful. After I became a corporal in 2011, Larry was on one of the first squads I supervised. He did not have a sergeant for several months, and I was half the age of most of the squad. They all had many more years of experience than I did, but Larry always made me feel good about trying to be a supervisor. Even though he had trained me in the academy and had more than twice as many years on the road as I did, and no doubt knew more about policing than I ever will, he always treated me respectfully, especially in front of the other officers. Larry had a big personality, and he carried a lot of weight in the briefing room. Through his words and actions, he graciously shared the respect he had earned with me. I will never forget that about Larry. Even in the past few years, as the most senior officer on the squad, he never complained or made excuses. "It's all good, man," was his constant catchphrase. He was the epitome of keeping it light, keeping it positive, and keeping it simple. When given a task, no matter how unpleasant, his only reply was one or two of these simple lines. "Yes, sir, no problem. I'll take care of it, sir." "Sure," or "Whatever you need, sir." I can still hear him saying that in my mind, and it is truly humbling. Deputy Henderson had a heart to help others. He could calm and de-escalate situations so subtly that many did not even remember how upset they were. As a defensive tactics instructor in the Patrol Academy, Larry spent many hours in the padded suit beating up other patrol officers and cadets. Accompanying him in these lessons of subordination was our irritable, now retired rangemaster, known well for his temperamental outbursts and physical corrective measures. During one heated session of pugilistic training, this ill-tempered trainer took a well-placed kneecap to the groin from a hapless cadet. As the former powerlifter raised him off the ground in a fit of rage, he began escorting him to the edge of the room. Larry, the ever-helpful problem solver, saw the trajectory of this ball of fury and calmly offered, "Hey, can I at least open the window before you throw him out?" Larry spent a great deal of time working with our training section. He also taught DARE classes and was actually considering the idea of going back to work full-time as a school resource officer. Yes, Larry was great with kids of all ages. I think mostly because he was kind of a big kid himself.
Kind of a big kid himself. That is Lieutenant Dave Downing. He is the commander for District 5, which is the last district for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department where Deputy Henderson served. And they clearly were friends from a very long time. I think he talked about, I'm not sure if it was in that clip, but that when he came into the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, Larry Henderson trained him.
Right.
And so this was clearly a good friend, someone he knew and trusted, who became Larry Henderson's commander. So he had to call him sir after a period of time, even though he was his elder. And something that Charmaine McGuffey, the sheriff, had said earlier in the week was that Larry Henderson never wanted to be anything more than a deputy. He didn't want to become a commander. He didn't want to rise in the ranks. He wanted to be a street cop, but a deputy.
Right.
He wanted to be always out front facing with the people. That says something about a person, doesn't it? Doesn't it say something about that kind of heart of service?
That was a guy that was great in his craft, and he wanted to stay there and do what he thinks he can serve best. And I applaud that. I know a lot of people like that. And I've been where the Lieutenant Downing, where he's at today, I've been in that situation where, yeah, you come on as a new kid, but then you got promoted, and then you got some of those old guys working for you. It's challenging, and I just want to say I think Lieutenant Dowling did a great job.
Amazing, wonderful.
I couldn't have. The way he described Larry, the way he let us take a look inside District 5 and how that operated and their relationship, I thought he did a marvelous job with that.
It was one of the best eulogies I have ever heard. And not having ever, I think I probably met Deputy Henderson along the route. He looks so familiar to me, but I don't know him. But having not known the man personally, I got to know him today.
The character, you got all aspects of that character.
And you also understood Lieutenant Downing started out his eulogy. He was mad. He is angry over the death of his friend and the way he died. And then he lightened up, and he told, with that segment that we just showed you where he got to make everyone laugh in that place and lighten up that mood a little bit to talk about what kind of a jokester and funny guy he was.
And I think for the folks at home, this is a real serious event, and now we're being lighthearted. You're seeing the culture of these agencies. That's the way we operate. So you're getting a peek of that. I think Lieutenant Dowling brought that out very, very well. And in my opinion, I think they've done a great job so far. This has gone very well.
Within a department, within this mission, you need somebody like Larry Henderson.
You can get wrapped up in this every day. Everything's so serious, right? Every day, this. At some point, you got to say, take a break. Really?
Right.
Really? We've got this. Let's take a break here. So you need those people to say, you're not going to solve the world's problems today, Captain, Lieutenant, whoever you might be.
Take a breath.
Not going to happen today, sir.
In Henderson's words too, though, go home. I got it.
I got it. Oh.
But I've had people with their own rank say, sir, crime's not going to go away just because you're the captain of District 5. So you got to get right. It happens. So.
Yes, you do. We have Connor Steffen, who's standing by right outside of Spring Grove Cemetery. And Connor, you have someone with you there.
I do, Tanya. I want to give you another update. The procession still going on here. Just to give you that update, I know you asked the last time we spoke. I want to bring in Tony and Lisa. if you guys want to come on in here, you can see they're holding a flag for Marines, for Deputy Henderson, a veteran himself. A very emotional procession we've seen so far. And I want to ask you first, Tony, seeing all the different law enforcement agencies, the number of cars, the people that are showing up here for Deputy Henderson, what does it make you feel?
Overwhelming, and proud of all these officers, what they do on a daily basis, and just a senseless act that should have never happened. I just support the family.
A lot of people here to support the family. What do you think, seeing the magnitude of the impact it seemed to have today?
It is overwhelming, very overwhelming. And I think they need a lot of support. And we're proud of what they do. So we're here to support them.
Obviously, you guys are here to support him. I'm assuming you didn't know him.
No.
And you've heard of him throughout the week.
Yes.
For you, after all you've heard, why was it so important to come here, like you said, support and pay your respects?
Support the family, support all officers everywhere, and just show your face, show you really care.
And I'm sure, as we've been speaking about a lot today, it's not just here to support Deputy Henderson, but really all law enforcement, right? Those who choose to serve. To that end, do you have anything to add? We're talking about law enforcement.
Yes, we just are very proud of them, and we just want to support them. So that's why we're here.
Just like to say Semper Fi to all the Marines out there and all the military that are supporting this. So.
Obviously, the community coming together today. I want to thank you, Tony and Lisa. Thank you very much for speaking with us. We are here at Spring Grove Cemetery. The services will begin soon, but Tanya, like I was saying, you still have plenty of cars, cruisers making their way through here.
Connor,
Parking
are they
is
running out of room?
now soon hard to come by. I was just about to say, I don't know, Emily, if you can, it's hard to see if we can turn the other way to show all of the cars here. I mean, you're kind of quite literally blocked by the vehicles, but I'm trying to look now. I mean, Tanya, this is going for several blocks easily. It could be more. Honestly, I can't see where the end of the cars, the cruisers are, where they're parked on that end. On the other side, again, it's at this point, all the cruisers here.
Are they stacked up like 2 and 3 across? Across the lanes, yeah.
Yeah. You have, well, this entire road, it's shut down. So you've got like 1, 2, 3, at least 4 rows of cruisers. And, you know, these aren't just local cruisers, guys. We've seen a lot out of the city, out of Hamilton County, out of the tri-state, a lot from Dayton as well. It's an overwhelming sight to see. It's just amazing.
And it's still coming. And like, look behind you for us, would you? Could you tell us the procession, is it still happening?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to walk up here a bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I still see some cruisers coming. I'd say probably,
oh my goodness, yes.
close to 100 feet away from me. I can see them and make them out. They're very tiny, that's how far away.
Yeah, we can see
They
Emily
still
is
are,
actually
but
zoomed
they
in past
keep
you now.
coming.
We can see that. Yeah, the police truck now just coming into
You
view
can
there
see
at
it.
the end. Yeah.
But you don't see an end in
And I
sight.
mean, at this point, like it's
Well,
just
I can tell you
it's
that's
just a sea of
probably the end
cruisers.
because all the Cincinnati cars fell into the back of the procession.
So we are near the end.
And the
You
officer's
see
just putting the barricade across the road there. So
That's likely the end.
So when they're putting that stay with us, Connor, but gentlemen, when they're putting that barricade across, they're just shutting down the road at this point because there's just nowhere else for them to put. We're at mass capacity.
I don't know where they're going to put the overflow. And I'm sure they probably got a contingency plan for that.
Yeah.
We've got an event planning unit that they're second to none. These guys have planned it out, and Dave's been on the other end of this. They get the task, they go out, they map it all out. They know they're going to have several thousand, and you're looking at least 1,000 police cars and civilian cars there. They're ready for it.
Well, we sat down with Sonny Kim. That was on a Friday morning that happened. By Sunday night, we had a pretty good rough sketch of what we were going to do.
Does this rival how many vehicles, how many people that Officer Sonny Kim, who was shot dead, he was a District 2 police officer. That was, what, 10 years ago or so?
it was shortly after, 2025 it was, or 2015 was the...
this is on the same level.
I think so.
And
it's massive. It's very massive.
And I think, is it possible, guys, that the manner and the way that he was hit and then killed was shocking. And does that also get a response in a way that maybe, not that any death is more important than the other, but the response from different localities, municipalities to bring people in, they're like, we want to be here for this particular one? Or am I just being silly here?
You're not being silly. I don't want to diminish the other officers who've gotten killed in the line of duty, but when you see an officer murdered as compared to a traffic accident, there's substantially more people attend those funerals.
That's kind of what I'm getting to.
Yeah,
so that is
absolutely. And I don't want to compare one to the other, but when you see an officer that's murdered, you see a substantially larger number of officers that show up. I've worked the last couple of these before I retired, and this is a huge turnout. Sonny Kim's was a huge turnout.
both killed in the line of duty.
Correct. Parton over in Covington, they were huge. They were murdered in the line of duty, and that's when the community has their most outrage, and that's when you see the compassion in the community. They're here to tell the family, both the law enforcement family and the victim's family, they're there to support them, and that's what you're seeing here.
I guess the question you're asking, this ambush is a little bit unusual. Would that command more interest? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
And clearly we know that this story itself has garnered national attention.
It's made national news. I've had family in other parts of the country say, "Oh my gosh, what just happened to Cincinnati?" This is notorious in that way.
And to that point, Deputy Henderson's name is being spoken in departments across this country and globally even. We've seen some headlines come out from over in the UK tied to this incident that's played out. But departments across this country are speaking his name for a variety of reasons. Whether that be
Do they do that in a
lessons
roll call?
learned.
It's a shock. It's a shock. It's a big shock to law enforcement.
Do they do like in a roll call this morning?
Absolutely. Anytime an officer's killed in the line of duty, there's a teletype that goes out, and it's a supervisor. Dave and I have both done it. You read a recap of, Deputy Henderson was working a traffic post, and you go through it, and it's a teletype that goes nationwide. It is shared at every roll call throughout the United States.
I want to go to Rabbi Mendy. He is the chaplain for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. And I was texting him earlier this week. What an incredible guy. And he spoke so beautifully today at this service. Let's listen to a little of what he had to say.
As we come to the close of the service, I'd like to offer a few reflections shared amongst what feels like a couple of thousand of Larry's closest friends. As the department's chaplain, I won't share personal stories or private conversations. Instead, I want to reflect on the way Larry lived and the legacy he leaves behind. Larry was a man devoted to others. That devotion was unmistakable across nearly 40 years of service to our country and to Hamilton County, first as a Marine and then as a sheriff's deputy. He didn't judge others by race, religion, nationality, or orientation. He looked at character. He believed in helping anyone who was willing to accept it, and he touched countless lives, many of whom he may have encountered only once, but left with a lasting impact. In what many would consider a well-earned retirement, Larry and his beloved wife Lori chose not to rest, but to give. They opened their home and hearts to foster children, once again showing that their lives were grounded in compassion, not convenience. Larry didn't care where someone came from. What mattered to him was where they would go with love, support, and someone who believed in them. That's who Larry was. Someone who quietly, consistently chose to do good, simply because it was the right thing to do. Larry's life was stolen from us in an act of evil. How do we respond to such darkness? How do we carry on when something so senseless shatters us? We respond with light. A little light dispels much darkness. We don't have to fight darkness. We just need to introduce light. In a pitch black room, even a flicker of light can change everything. It doesn't take much. That is our task now, to honor Larry by living as he did, shining light into the lives of others through acts of goodness and kindness. So I ask you all today, take a page from Larry's life. Let's honor him by making a resolution, not like that New Year's resolution, but a commitment that you will actually live out. Doesn't have to be big. If you're usually grumpy in the morning, commit to greeting others with a smile and a kind word. Donate to a charity that helps others. Lend a hand to someone in need, but do it in Larry's honor. And who knows, maybe you'll find yourself doing it again and again. Larry never wanted the spotlight. That wasn't his style. So I'm going to shift directions a little bit and speak directly to his brothers and sisters of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. Even after 30 years of service, I still wake up every morning feeling blessed to serve alongside each and every one of you. I often say the best part of this job is getting to work with some of the finest people I know. The hardest part, losing one of them. I'm so proud of all of you. You always have each other's backs. Yes, we bicker sometimes like siblings, but when it matters most, we stand together. This past week has shown that in powerful ways. Keep looking out for one another. We will get through this together, and we'll always carry our memories of Larry. No one can take that from us. To the Cincinnati Police and our fellow law enforcement agencies across Hamilton County, thank you. Thank you for pinning on that badge every day. Thank you for your courage, your sacrifice, and your dedication. You are seen and you are appreciated. To the citizens of Hamilton County, thank you for your support. Your presence here today means everything. But please, don't wait for a tragedy to show that support. Continue to stand behind the men and women who serve you. I've seen it. The waitress who brings cookies to the table paid for by a stranger. The heartfelt thank yous while on patrol. The letters and cards dropped off at the stations. We notice, we remember, we need that, especially when others are loud with hate. I remember my first day at the academy. They showed us photos of fatal accidents and graphic crime scenes, videos of officers being killed in the line of duty. They told us about high divorce rates, increased health risks, higher suicide rates, and the emotional toll of this profession. One person left that day, never to come back. This job is not for everyone. It takes a very special person to say yes. Despite all of that, I still want to help others. I want to ensure the citizens can sleep at night without worrying about the evil that lurks out there. Those are the people I ask you to support loudly and often. To Larry's family, there are no words. You had Larry up close every day. You knew his laugh, his quirks, his strength, and his love. Thank you for sharing him with all of us. Thank you for the sacrifice you made every time he walked out the door. You never knew if that would be the day you'd get the call. Sadly, that day came last Friday. But know this, you are and always will be part of our family at the Sheriff's Office. We are here for you, we uplift you in prayer, we surround you with love, and we will forever be grateful. To those who have passed before Larry, and who will no doubt greet him in heaven, be ready. Larry brings his sense of humor, his heart, and surely a few tricks up his sleeve. Heaven has gained an angel, a faithful servant, and a fierce protector. And finally, Larry.
We are leaving that just quickly because we want to get to what's happening at that graveside at Spring Grove Cemetery.
We understand there has been some activity and things are beginning out there. Let's listen in if we can.
Retired Sergeant Franz, explain to us what we're seeing here.
We're seeing a bunch of, looks like the Marine Honor Guard. Looks like he's a senior ranking non-commissioned officer. They're probably going to help with some point of the, when they bring the case on in and move the body to the resting place.
And you see that just so happens that there is that flag with the Marine seal on it, blowing in the wind on the right side of our screen. Absolutely perfectly, we know that that's just a gentleman who's come to be part of this today. At least that's as far as we know, that they are standing in front of what looks like that honor guard from the Marine Corps.
Extremely solemn moment. We spoke earlier about it, just to the words used by Deja, eerily quiet, scenario here, Captain, and you discussed that a little bit. Like, this is a moment when you start hearing, there's nothing. You hear the birds at this point.
The birds, that's what you're going to hear, the silence and the birds, and we're waiting and thinking, reflecting.
Okay, here we go.
And the colors.
So that is the color guard from the Sheriff's Department?
That is the Sheriff's Department.
The color guard.
And that
This
looks
is
like
the
a
song.
case.
You hear the bagpipes starting.
You were listening to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office Pipe and Drum Corps there. It's an amazing sound that they bring, the presence that they bring during a ceremony like this.
So traditional, so sad. And they, of course, serenaded in the casket, the riderless horse. You saw that caisson carrying that casket. Watch.
So clearly the shot has frozen now. We're going to try to work on some of the technical issues there. Again, this is a pool camera for all local TV stations here. Out of respect to the family, that is as close to the services, the Graveside services, that we will actually be. And that is out of respect to the family, to ensure that we're giving them their space on this very solemn day.
So that casket will then move into place. We expect that there should be a 21 gun salute that should be happening right about now. Is that right?
They're going to move it up to the front. The father will probably say a few words, and after that, they'll do the 21 gun salute.
Because they will also have to go through the procedure of not only taking the coffin to the gravesite, you also have a flag ceremony that will take place. 21 gun salute, folding of the flag, presenting that to Mrs. Henderson out of respect and honor of her husband's service.
They're all standing at attention. What does that mean?
Most likely at this point they are taking Deputy Henderson's casket to the gravesite. Everyone is saluting in honor and honoring him on his final journey here.
When they ushered the colors in, they called attention, so all the troops would be standing at attention.
And once he arrives, the pipe and drum corps will play their final note. And everything at this point is so precision.
Practiced over and over.
You don't want to do it wrong. You don't want to step a foot out of place, correct?
It's all got to be scripted. Everybody, you know, and I've always said everybody's got to be where they need to be on time. It's got to move the way it's supposed to go.
We saw this drum and pipe, or pipe and drum corps. But one of you remarked, didn't realize there were that many in the Hamilton County group. Still, I would imagine anyone who's been part of it said, I'm going to be part of this today. We are here, you can hear it in the distance, and it's not clear, so I wanted to let everyone at home know what's happening right now. Someone is speaking some words. It might be Father Angie, graveside. It might be the rabbi saying a few words at that graveside, and then there should be a 21 gun salute. We'll let you listen, though, to see if you can make out some words.
Hamilton County Deputy Henderson. The response of Deputy Henderson was too high. This is the last call for Deputy Larry Henderson. Larry began his well-documented life of service when he joined the United States Marine Corps at the age of 18 and served his country for 4 years, from 1985 to 1989. He joined the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department in 1991 as a correctional officer and then volunteered for the Sheriff's Audit Guard. Over the next 34 years, he went above and beyond to serve his community and coworkers through training and special activities. In 1997, he moved to Work Patrol and served as an instructor and trainer in the Academy and an in-service courses. Larry also served as a member of the Eulogy, air officer, SWAT team member, and a member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. In 23 years of active service, he was the longest serving member of the Sheriff's Primary Division Unit, or the Bombing. Retiring in December 2024, Larry became a special deputy in the service community at the University of Cincinnati and Mercy Anderson Hospital. He and his wife were dedicated themselves to service by God's children. While those words will come, they poured their hearts to society of most vulnerable citizens, protecting them from abuse and abandonment. On Friday, May 2nd, 2025, Larry was working at a insurance control office, listening to pedestrians and ensuring that the graduates and their families were safely at the ceremony at the University of Cincinnati. Larry's life of service and sacrifice came to a sudden and tragic end due to a senseless and intentional act on the law enforcement community. By inadvertently taking the place of another, Larry died a hero, and he will be forever missed by us all. President Deputy Henderson will take it from here. Larry Hamilton County Communications, May 9, 2025, on 1407.
So right now you can actually hear helicopters approaching. This is a missing man formation that will fly over. Eric, if you want to explain some of the units that are involved here.
Butler County, Kentucky State Police, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, you see Air Care and Columbus Division of Police all have their helicopters.
We are not in control of the camera that is at that gravesite, so we can't tell them to tilt up, but I think that person has figured it out, so we'll see this happening.
Aircraft here flying over in the missing man formation, showing that obviously one peels away representing Deputy Henderson, and the remaining 4 are the remaining deputies and members of law enforcement continuing on.
Looks like Columbus is the last helicopter.
So you mind repeating those again? I know you said KSB.
Columbus, University Air Care, Ohio State Police, you said KSP, and then Butler County Sheriff's Office. Hamilton County got rid of their helicopter a year or 2 ago.
So this is all these different agencies coming together to pay tribute to this fallen deputy in this way.
Following the missing man formation here, and they've now flown past Spring Grove Cemetery. Very solemn moment where members of the Honor Guard, I'm presuming here, obviously we can't see them, but we'll go through the task now of properly honoring Deputy Henderson by folding the American flag. And again, when we talk about the precision that takes place in these ceremonies, it is folded in a very specific way and then presented to Mrs. Henderson.
Right, and they work on this year-round, and we talked about the missing man formation. The origins of it, which I was never clear about, I think might have went back to the First World War, how they would honor that fallen officer, and they would trail off, and that's what they've done here with the helicopters. But all of it's done in precision, all of it's solemn.
Craig, you said you've been part of so many of those particular things where you've had to fold up that flag and learn to do that. It's something that there's incredible pride in doing, folding the American flag that has lain as a shroud over their casket.
And it's taken off the casket, the blue union, obviously everything has to be positioned just right on the casket as well. So there's symbolism through all of this. There will be 13 folds in all. And when the folds are completed and the flag is tucked in a triangle formation that we're all very familiar with, obviously, in flag cases, and perhaps you've seen those, and you wonder why is it folded in that way. That is how you store an American flag. It's not bundled up in a ball and shoved on a shelf or anything. That is the proper way, and it's to honor, for many things, honor the flag, honor for what it stands for, but in this case specifically honoring Deputy Henderson and his service. And when that is presented, there will be 4 stars, if folded correctly, that will be presented on one side of the flag, and that will then be
handed to his wife,
and the widow in this case. And certain words are said. I'm not sure specifically what Hamilton County and what they say, but typically in the military is on behalf of a grateful nation, United States Army or Air Force, whatever unit and branch that the member was in, and you thank them for their service to country. So the words that will be said and expressed to Mrs. Henderson will be something along those lines.
Similar, it'd be similar, right.
Yeah.
I should mention, so his wife is Lori. He has 5 children. Larry, who's married to Sophia, Alexandria, married to Steve. Then there's Taylor, Riley, and Adriana. And then they have 4 grandchildren as well. Maverick, Parker, Logan, and Rowan. He's survived by his sisters, named Jean, and assumably they are all under that tent, all there to receive that flag along with Lori, his wife. We were talking about numbers here. Gentlemen, you've been part of far too many of these. You said there were more than 1,000 vehicles in that procession. Eric, you were estimating about 2,500 people.
There's about 2,500 people there.
Or more.
Yeah, that could conceivably be more.
Everybody there is donning their best today. Today is for Larry and the family, and you want to be your best. You want to look your best, hold that salute up tight, and just you're doing everything to be your best today.
We do know that Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey will address the media later today. We don't know exactly what time, if it will happen directly after this event or not, but we want you to know that she will indeed address the media. We will take that if we can at that point. If not, we'll certainly bring it to you later. And now we hear the bagpipes starting again.
Just listening there to what appears to be a group of pipe and drum corps members from different agencies coming together with the Hamilton County unit. The purpose, and you mentioned, Captain, that, okay, so they just released everyone. So this is technically the end of the funeral services here. The family will have a very private moment here after everyone leaves. You spoke about that trailing bagpiper and that part of the ceremony that really hits you.
That always gets me. It's always, you know, no different here. But as the audience can see at home, that all our traditions recognize that a person is leaving our ranks. That's what all these things do. We recognize that person is now going and leaving our ranks. It'll be tough. It's gonna be tough today. We mentioned that the sheriff might speak with us later, and I think the challenge now is we talked about moving on. Now today we got to mobilize our departments to move on tomorrow and push forward and recognize a terrible, awful tragedies happened to one of our folks, but understand, and I talked to Larry Edwards, that a good friend, or Lee Edwards, a good friend of Larry's, that said, you know what, Larry would have want, move forward and provide policing services the way Larry did. So we got to be mindful of that. Tomorrow we push on and we provide that exemplary service that we always have.
And perhaps taking away from his, Marine Corps mindset and how everything was polished and everything was in place on his uniform. Maybe the deputies tomorrow, they take that extra little polish. They double check those things in honor of Larry.
Right. And that's what Larry would have wanted. I think that would be the message today. Move forward and move forward the way he would have wanted to move forward. So I think that's a message for law enforcement today. And for the audience at home, we appreciate you being part of it too.
Yeah. A man who should have been enjoying retirement to some degree. He wasn't fully retired. He retired and then came back, but these were the golden years. These were the moments, and they were taken away.
He reached the finish line. We reflected back about Sonny Kim when he passed away. Sonny was at the finish line. Larry made it past the finish line, and that's what's so shocking and hurtful here is
sad.
Here's a guy that worked his whole life to support his family, to support his community, and he's well respected. We've talked about it over and over.
That sense of service. He
came back. I don't think a lot of people understand there's a shortage of officers right now to work special events, the River Bends, the UCs, the Bengals and the Reds games, and that's what Larry was doing. I doubt he came back just solely for the money. He came back because, like others, he knew we needed officers to support those events.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there have been some criticisms from people saying, well, he wasn't killed in the line of duty because he was retired. He was in the line of duty.
Absolutely. I don't know any other definition in the line of duty than being in a uniform, working as a police officer and a sheriff's deputy in this case. And he was there. That is a critical point. At UC, that's the critical traffic light. And Dave brought that up earlier. He was there because he knew what he was doing, and his supervisors put him there for that reason. So the man worked a hard career and sadly made it past the finish line and unfortunately, he was murdered in the line of duty. And his name is going to be engraved, it's already engraved in Cincinnati. It'll be on the National Memorial in Washington, D.C. Here within the next year.
I don't want to tell on you, but I am going to.
You can tell all you want.
You choked up. There was a point at which, I did too, but you big, tough, strong man, you choked up. Do you mind going through what was going through your mind at that moment when you could not contain those tears?
Yeah, we've buried too many friends. I knew Larry. I didn't know Corporal McMillan. I've known most of the officers, all the Cincinnati officers I've worked with, and it brings back memories of that. So.
You also have a memory of Larry, if we can, while you were on patrol. You got into a situation where you were one-on-one with someone, you had them at gunpoint, and there were no other Cincinnati officers in the area to respond.
I was in Mount Washington, and my cover car was in Evanston, and I still remember to this day. Had a guy had a pistol underneath the seat. He was drunk, wasn't complying with me, and I called for help. And Larry was there. He was the first one there. The situation resolved itself, and Larry made himself known to that guy, and I'm blessed that I didn't have to use lethal force, and I'm blessed that I didn't get injured in that event. And if he hadn't been there that day, things probably would have gone differently. And I didn't know it at the time. I just was reading back. He probably had just come out of the Justice Center and gone to road patrol within 6 or 8 months of that incident happening.
No, it's that long ago.
Yeah. So this was in the 90s, and again, I was in park all by myself with a guy that had a gun.
And let me remind people, this is a Cincinnati police officer, and that is a sheriff's deputy. So he was coming to the aid. It was a mutual aid situation.
Right.
And he came to your aid.
He was there, and that's when you work outlying parts of the district.
Commonplace. That's
Happens.
commonplace.
Madisonville, Marymount will go in and help them.
Fairfax,
and
Marymount.
Fairfax. It's we know each other. Sure. Chris Ketterman, who's the chief deputy, I know him just from covering each other over that city-county line.
Sure.
He was there for me, and I was there for him. And that's what Larry did that night.
That continues that thread that we talk about. It's not just Cincinnati is by
You're not
itself.
in a silo.
Everyone has that thread who serves.
This man was given the Medal of Honor.
Medal of Valor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Medal of Valor. My apologies, but you know, he rendered aid to someone who was shot and dying. He took care of that person that time. I mean, this is not someone who was a selfish human being.
When you're an active officer like that, you get involved in these situations, and from what we know today, what we've all learned together, Larry was an exemplary officer. He one of a kind, and you kind of wish you had a whole department full of Larrys.
Yeah.
But Larry, you said Larry went back, and I think we discovered why it's a family that sometimes you're just reluctant to leave. You know what I mean? It's like, well, not ready to go yet. I still want to hang out with my family, so. And I know that feeling. I think Eric knows that feeling. We all know that feeling. Yeah. And you know, it's a rewarding job. It's been a great career for me, and we don't want these outcomes. No agency ever wants these outcomes, but we don't have that luxury. We're confronted with situations where we're trained very well here. We're lucky, and we end up with these situations, and it's never good.
Did you feel the fragility of it all last Friday?
Yeah.
When you heard?
Mm-hmm. A traffic post. I think that's what really got me and Eric here. It's like a traffic post. Okay, I was on a traffic post 3 weeks ago for Marymount, right?
Yeah.
Doing the same thing that Larry is. Now it's like, well, okay.
If we can, let's break into Sheriff's
on. Yeah.
From the time he became an adult, a man who gave his life for this country, a man who gave his life to walk the road of justice. And he walked it proud, and now we are lifting him higher, and he is lifted higher. And I will tell you that Larry Ray Henderson, his courage knew no bounds. He was courageous, he was honored, he was a deputy that all deputies aspire to be. A 33-year career cut short, and we all mourn. We all mourn that for Larry, and it's hard to let go of Larry. It's very hard to let go. We all knew him very well. Larry received the Medal of Valor during his career as he was in a very, very dangerous situation and held his ground until we could get back up there for him. And that's the man Larry was.
This show of support, Sheriff, so impressive. Your thoughts?
Yes, what you've witnessed here today is the legacy and the strength of law enforcement from around the region, from around this great nation. These are the men and women who pledged their lives so that all of us can live in peace. And what you saw, the flyover, the ceremony of folding the flag, the caisson, carrying Larry, draped in the American flag, as only he would want. And the men and women who stand and perform the 21-gun salute. Those are historic ceremonies that are meant to honor Larry's life. And we are so honored to witness them.
Sheriff, the flag that was on his coffin, it was folded up and given to his family. What was said to his family?
When I presented the flag to his family, I noted that it was on the behalf of a grateful nation and the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department that I present that flag for Larry's courageous career. Larry will live in our hearts. He'll never be gone from us. And we will not walk alone.
Sheriff, this has been a beautiful two-day ceremony, is there a message you want to convey to Greater Cincinnati and beyond?
I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of Cincinnati and beyond this region, and to people all over the nation that have reached out. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for the things that you've said, the text messages, the things that you have embraced your friends and helped people grieve, because we're all grieving together. Those of you that lined the route, you were all noticed and you were all appreciated.
Your deputies were grieving as well. How do you move forward?
We've pledged an oath for the duty and to walk the path of justice. And every one of us knows that if one of us goes down, there will be someone to stand in their place, and that person will take up the mantle, and so on, and so on, and so on.
What goes through your mind when you're in this procession and you see the show of support? Whether it's people who knew Deputy Henderson and people who didn't know Deputy Henderson. What are you thinking in that moment?
What I'm thinking when I see those people lined on the procession route, the ones that were there today, yesterday, the people that came here for the ceremony, uniformed and not, is the fact that we are so blessed. We are so blessed to live in this region, to live among people who are so incredible and who use their time and efforts to pay tribute to someone who has given so much to them. I think we are all so very blessed, and I know that everyone is mourning someone. I understand that. And I have to say that Cincinnati, Hamilton County is a place of extraordinary people. Extraordinary. And it shows.
Sheriff, I talked with somebody in the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and they knew Larry and talked about the impact that he had on deputies there. Just speak to that. We saw the support from all across the tri-state, just the impact he had, not just here, but across the region.
Oh, absolutely, because Larry worked in a specialized unit. He was a bomb tech. And, there aren't that many, people that want to raise their hand and say, hey, I'll volunteer to defuse bombs. And Larry did that. And when you're in that specialized unit, you have to connect. You have to connect across the region, because you never know how dangerous it's going to be, how many people you're going to need. And they all trained together. All of them did. And again, it's an example of Larry's courage and how it reached beyond Hamilton County, beyond the state of Ohio. And now he's lifted higher.
Everybody good? Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey. Of course, this is just moments after the funeral for her fallen deputy, Larry Henderson, giving us some final words there. And on that note, we're going to wrap up our coverage here. So Assistant Chief Dave Bailey from the Cincinnati Police Department, retired, now with Marymount. Can you give us your final thoughts on this day?
As everybody knows, a very tragic day. On behalf of law enforcement, I would say goodbye to Larry. Job well done. And our thoughts and prayers to the Henderson family. And to law enforcement, our prayers are all set with you. Could be challenging days, but again, that message, move forward.
Retired Sergeant Eric Frowns.
It's clear Larry led from the front, and that's a sign of a good leader. And law enforcement's hurting in this county right now. I'd like to thank you and the whole team here you did a really good job of showing what it's like to go through this type of an event. So.
Gentlemen, we could not have done this without
Absolutely.
you. We thank you so much. It was a beautiful send-off for Larry Henderson, who was a father, a grandfather, a son, a deputy, a Marine Corps veteran. He gave his career in service to others, and he gave his life protecting the community that he loved. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for your service to our country and our community, Deputy. We're going to leave you now with a reflection on today's services. Thank you for joining us.
Here, we are united in grief as we reflect the life and service of Deputy Larry Henderson.
Exactly 1 week ago today, a 2016 Ford Focus embarked on a rage-fueled voyage of vengeance. The driver, a bitter and angry man whose name I will never speak.
Today, we are reminded that we, as we are called to service, we raise our hand. We swear the oath.
Wanted to show my support for all our law enforcement and fire department, everyone that serves the community.
He was a better person than he was a police officer, and that's saying a lot, because Larry was the best police officer that you could possibly find.
There is no doubt that on May 2nd, 2025, Larry took the place of another officer. He may have taken that place for me, or you, or anyone in this room.
To the citizens of Hamilton County, continue to stand behind the men and women who serve you. I've seen it. The waitress who brings cookies to the table paid for by a stranger. The heartfelt thank yous while on patrol. We notice, we remember. We need that.
I always felt so safe around him.
He was the type of guy that would do anything for you.
Each of us knowing in our hearts that we will never walk alone.